taking one of these spots. Sit right back there and like,
oh, I drink it all the time.
All right. Call the meeting to order at 6:07, and we'll start with the opening exercises of a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Cassidy Gostros.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And before we proceed, I just want to highlight that Miss Judy Doan is, her granddaughter is not feeling well, so she's taking care of her, and we look forward to hearing what she has to say, watching live stream. And we'll start with recognitions, staff recognitions. Ms. Danielle Airy.
Good evening, President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson. It's always wonderful to be before you and present some of the incredible achievements from our students and staff, and that's exactly what we have for you this evening. One incredible student and also some staff members that we'd like to highlight. As you all know, Peoria Unified recently held its annual district spelling bee with students who advanced to the district level after competing at their own school sites. Tonight we will be recognizing our winner of this year's district-wide spelling bee. So please join me in a very big congratulations to Annabelle Tran from Desert, well, we have Desert Harbor on here, but it is not Desert Harbor. It's actually Frontier Elementary School, and that's a very important point to note. So I apologize for that, but from Frontier Elementary School for being our top district speller. Let's give Annabelle just a huge round of applause. And Annabelle, I'll invite you up here with me here for just a minute, but just in case everybody else in the audience missed it, we're going to tell them just a little bit about you and what makes you so special. Annabelle emerged as the winner in the 23rd round with the word reflex. Is that right? Yes? Okay. Annabelle and all of our participants were very impressive, and it was obvious that they had worked very hard to be at that level in the competition. So Annabelle will be joined with 7 others from our district, and they will compete at the Regional B hosted by Glendale Elementary School District later this month. So certainly we are wishing Annabelle and the rest of them from our district a really a fun time there, even though I think it might be just a little bit nerve-wracking, but we know you're going to do awesome. Our spelling bee, of course, wouldn't be able to happen without the work of our tireless staff members, so we want to thank many of them who helped to coordinate that. Would also like to recognize Frontier's incredible Mrs. Lori Little for all the support she gives to Annabelle and to that school, and I think you have a special guest here with you as well, supporting you, Mom, back there. So big thank you to you as well, Mom. Well, I'm going to walk with Annabelle here around to the front so we can be a little closer, if that's okay. And I'm going to just hold this for you.
Mrs. Connect.
Congratulations, Annabelle. That is really, really cool. So my question is, were you a good speller before you started studying for the spelling bee?
I read a lot, so I could spell decently, yeah.
Very good. Thank you for shining a light on that connection between reading and spelling. Good job.
Mrs. Pingrelli.
Well, I also wanted to say thank you or congratulations. I was not the best speller, so what advice do you have for other students to help them improve on their spelling?
Just to study hard and to read a lot to learn new words.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval.
Annabelle, first off, you're amazing. I had the opportunity to attend the spelling bee, and your process, as you were asked to spell a certain word, very methodical and systematic. But I'll tell you, although you won, or the 23rd round, was that, Danielle, reflex? There are some words prior to that I would have been out much sooner than that round. So congratulations. Wish you all the success throughout the rest of your career at PUSD.
Thank you.
And Annabelle, we had a chance to speak, and I asked you a question. Why do you like spelling? Do you mind sharing with the rest of us?
I said that I like spelling because I just like how all the possibilities of the words and how there's so many different words in different languages.
Excellent answer. And just to highlight, she said all the possibilities. So congratulations and good luck.
Thank you.
A big congratulations and round of applause to Annabelle. I know we want to get a few photos of you, Annabelle, so we're going to have you, and we'll invite maybe Mrs. Little to come up with you as well. We'll get her in the picture. So we'll send you right around to the front, and Mom, come on up so you can get one too.
And Miss Airy, do you mind if we join her after they get?
Sure, go right ahead.
Right now? Okay.
Yeah, my favorite events at your station. How come I not?
Yes.
All of us? It's whatever you want. One more big round of applause for Annabelle. We'll be cheering for you, for sure, Annabelle. Congrats to you. Well, as I mentioned, we do have an additional recognition this evening, so if you'll allow me to proceed. We'd like to highlight the incredible work of a few of our staff members, and one, in fact, very well known around our community, our assistant principal at Marshall Ranch Elementary School, Mr. Sam Chagoya. And he's well known for his talent and abilities in wrestling. Many of you may know that, in addition to his fine skills as an assistant principal. But we're proud to share that he was recently inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and we are incredibly proud of that achievement for Mr. Chagoya. And I want to bring up a photo, and you may recognize a couple of the faces in this photo, because what's particularly interesting about the three men that you see up there is they each are standouts from their own talent, and we'll share a little bit about all three, but they have paths that really truly are interwoven and connected through their time in our district. So I'm going to talk next about Mr. Mike Curry, and Mike, as I understand it, was Sammy's coach throughout high school, college, and in the Olympics, because if you hadn't heard, Mr. Chagoya did go to the Olympics and quite proud of that achievement. He is Sammy's lifelong mentor, and over the past 19 years continues to dedicate his time and talents even outside of wrestling as a volunteer chess coach at Oakwood. Mike was also inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2013. So speaking of his sincere dedication to support our students and staff, Mr. Curry was unable to join us tonight. This evening he's running the state wrestling meet in Prescott. So he can't be here, but he's, of course, still up there and dedicated to students. So we really appreciate him, and we want to also recognize Mr. Curry's achievement. So if we can give him a round of applause as well. And then as you're looking at the screen, if you look to the left side, you will see Mr. Rick Johnson, certainly a very well-known face as well. Been before you here in this boardroom, and of course all around our district for many, many years. Mr. Johnson coached wrestling for a number of years, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. Equally as impressive, he recently received the Thomas E. Frederick Award of Excellence from the National Directors Association, and I think we have a photo of that as well. Only one award is given out nationally each year, and it's given to someone whose loyalty and contributions to the athletic administrator's profession best represent excellence in achievement, portrayed by Mr. Frederick himself. Now, Rick, you should know, is only the second Arizonan to ever be selected for this award. And I'll tell you that the other one also had a connection and tie to our district, and he was Rick's athletic director and mentor at Peoria High School in the 80s. So certainly that is quite the remarkable achievement. This is really, truly one of many awards that Mr. Johnson has received over the years, and unfortunately, due to a medical illness, he was unable to be with us this evening. We are so fortunate to have his son, Jeff, and Jeff's family. They've joined us tonight so we can honor and recognize Rick, and Jeff can be here to be a part of that. So we really do appreciate Jeff being here. Mr. Shigoya, we want to honor and recognize you. I'm going to invite you up here. I know the governing board may have some words for you. And Jeff, if you would come up as well and join him, and I know that certainly you'll want to share some words. So I will at this time turn it over to our governing board. Before we do, I think certainly the three men you saw in that picture, in addition to Jeff here representing Rick, really do deserve just a huge round of applause.
I'm going to let Jeff go first, so come on up, Jeff. He was a former student of mine, so I'm trying to be nice.
He was my coach, so I have to listen to him still. Thank you for that introduction. That was pretty good. I'm honored to be here to accept this award for my dad. I'm regretful that I have to accept it for him. Obviously, I wish he was here to accept it. I don't generally make a habit of accepting awards for my dad. In fact, before he got sick, I joked around with him a lot about, you know what it means when they start giving you all these awards, Dad? And he'd say, no. It means they're trying to get rid of you. But I know athletics was a huge part of his life and his legacy here in the school district, and I know he always had a special place in his heart for wrestling in particular. He started his career in teaching and coaching in wrestling back in the 70s in Maryville High School, and that's when Sammy first saw him as a kid, and that's where their relationship first started. But I just know he would be very honored and appreciative for this award and what you guys have said about him this evening. Thank you.
First of all, I want to say one thing about Rick. I met him when I was in 5th grade, so I've been watching him coach at Maryville, at Deer Valley, and we used to have to compete against his wrestlers, and I can tell you, a mentor for me, not just, I was talking to Jeff, he knows him as a father. I know him more as a wrestling coach and as a wrestler myself, because, you look at people and you ask yourself, what do you want to be? How do you want to be remembered? And talking to him last week, all I can tell you is he did a lot of great things for people, and I'm going to remember him as an individual who not only just gave to the wrestling community, he was a great football coach, and PSBN, also with Brian Yoder over there at Liberty, done an excellent job with promoting the Peoria Unified School District. Mike Corey, on the other hand, and that's the first time I ever called Mike Corey, because there's a bunch of Coreys. I've always called him Mr. Corey. Mr. Corey, he obviously was not able to be here. He's been running the state meet for over 20-some years, and since we've retired from coaching, all I can tell you is Mr. Corey is one of the nicest gentlemen you'll know, and Rick and him very good friends, would meet a lot, just talk about wrestling and the Peoria community. And so he's up there doing that, and I would not be here if it wasn't for people like Rick and Mr. Corey and my teachers. If those teachers that are watching tonight, I would not be here without the guidance. The Peoria teachers, I mean, they've given me more than I could ever even ask for. Jim Prinz, who was retired many, many years ago, was one of the first coaches that I had in 2nd and 3rd grade. So if he's out there, I know he's still alive, and you know, I gotta say thank you to you for, you know, starting me off at a young age, and then having Mr. Corey continue to do that, and I'm blessed. And to all my teachers who are still around, I didn't do this by myself, and the guidance of all the Peoria District teachers and administrators. I've been blessed my whole life, and I just want to thank my parents and my brothers and sisters. And it just, I've been blessed. And to my wife, Carrie, and my daughter, Chloe, all these accolades, whatever, and the same thing with Rick would be saying, and Mr. Corey. You know, these are the small things in life. The most important thing is family, and my greatest success, and I keep saying this, is my daughter and my wife. And so I've been blessed, and I appreciate just being talked here with or about with Rick Johnson and Mike Corey. So great people, so thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Thank you. And I said this to you earlier, Mr. Chigoya. One of my goals is to look as good as you, and I'm confident that one of these days I'm going to be able to do so. But I'll say this. You know, some of the things that you said, you know, I certainly echo. You know, I've had coaches, teachers, and staff who've, you know, influenced and inspired me and shaped who I am today. Just had dinner. My wife and I had dinner with my freshman basketball, high school freshman basketball coach last week. You just never know, you know, where the impact of a teacher and a coach truly ends, and I don't know that it ever does. You know, Mr. Johnson, you know, and you know, Mr. Yoder, I mean, the PSBN program, and to see Mr. Johnson and how he engages with the kids and his energy, and just, you know, always open arms, and just can-do attitude, you know, is certainly clear, and that certainly cascaded down to those the students who have walked, you know, through that program and who have met him, and you know, engaged in conversation with him. Mr. Chigoya, I mean, you talked about you know, your mentors and what they've done for you. You know, I've had conversations with you, your energy, and what you do every day, and what you've learned, and certainly your character and your passion, you know, for our students is clear. So we are grateful and certainly blessed to have you and certainly Mr. Johnson, you know, part of the PUSD team, and our students are as well. So thank you both.
Mrs. Connect?
Jeff, thanks for representing your dad so well today. And I don't know that everybody knows that you said you were a teacher here, but now you're a firefighter. So continue the legacy of public service. Thank you for that. What a great trio of role models that were presented with us here tonight. I'm so sorry that your dad is sick. You know, your dad, Jeff, your dad has done so much with the Peoria Student Broadcasting Network in the last 10 years. You know, essentially gave birth to it and grew it, and now it's on all of our campuses. I almost forget the part of his legacy that is athletics, which is so incredibly powerful and influential. So, like you said, an incredible legacy. And thank you, Sammy, for coming in and sharing the gifts that we have all shared and that you've shared with us. And I wish we had more time, because every once in a while we should revisit the story of your destiny and how that came to be at the Olympics, because it's so inspirational. So all these gentlemen, and I include you in here, Jeff, are an inspiration to our community and fabulous role models. And thank you for joining us this evening.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Well, what else is there to say? That my board members were very, Mr. Sandoval, that was very well said this evening. I just want to also thank you for coming, and I wish your dad could be here. I know that you would rather him be here to accept it than yourself. Sammy, may I call you Sammy? Yes. I would someday like to find out about your background and your Olympics career. But thank you. That was very well said about Mr. Johnson and the influence that a coach has is just tremendous. So I thank you all for coming this evening.
Thank you. And for a brief moment, can we pause? And who did you bring with you? Did you bring your family? Yes.
Wasn't the whole family. My youngest daughter had lacrosse, and my oldest son's a freshman at ASU. So I did bring my beautiful wife, Tracy, who was also a teacher here in the district before she became a stay-at-home mom. And then middle son, Brody. And that's it.
I brought my wife, Carrie. She taught here in the district at Heritage and Santa Fe. So she taught for 19 years. And my daughter, Chloe.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and all of you, your stories and the impact that you have. I know these awards were given to you because you had more of an influence than just in that ring. And I know, Mr. Chagoya, one event or one situation that still sticks with me, and I don't know if you remember, but when I was at Marshall Ranch, we had a parent that wanted a meeting, and you stood by me the whole time. So you don't remember, or you may not remember, but I remember.
I remember.
So your impact and your role model that you've brought for our students, so thank you so much. And our community is in debt for all your hard work and your dedication, so thank you so much. Well, at this time, I appreciate everybody staying and wanting to go through the agenda items. But this is usually the time, if you don't want to stay for the rest of the board meeting, you can go have, as my fellow board members always say, ice cream, pizza. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, and we are going to move on to board recognitions. Mrs. Connect?
Thank you, Mrs. Ceja Martinez. Two things I wanted to share, two large events actually that happened at Grand Canyon University. The first one was really a mega convention of students from across the West Valley called Speak Up, Stand Up, and Save a Life. And that happened back on, I can't remember, gosh, about 3 weeks ago now. Really fabulous coalition of schools and communities, city leaders who made resolutions to bring awareness to the problem of student suicide and to help empower students to recognize when their peers may be having challenges and to be helpful and supportive and to know that, you know, when somebody's in trouble, it is your business to intervene. And really, so it was a call to action to students to look out for their peers. So it was a really positive and inspirational day. And in that theme, also at Grand Canyon University, was the School Connect event, and that had hundreds of people as well. And the idea behind that program is to bridge communities together with nonprofits so that school districts or schools that have needs for their students can partner with other organizations and nonprofits that may be able to supply resources or connections that could be beneficial and help the schools to fulfill their mission to support their kids. And it was a feel-good event, and I know that a lot of important connections were made. And I know some of our staff members were there as well, so I hope that it was time well spent and that we can help put our students in touch with the right people who can support them.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
And that was tremendous, Kathy, the first event that you had mentioned. I was there.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, it was so many speakers, and I didn't get to stay for the whole thing, just part of it, but it was tremendous. The amount of students on campus was overwhelming. Yeah. It was in a good way. I did want to also thank, and this is kind of a delayed thank you, to Glendale City Councilman Ray Malnar. He invited all of the Ironwood High School Student Council officers and the school board on January 4th, so this is definitely overdue. So I was able to be there. And it was a great game. A lot of the kids, a lot of the students, they were so excited. And most of them, I believe, it was their first hockey game. Bless you. And it was such a great time to have your first hockey game because the Glendale Arena, they donated their suite. Bless you again. So it was a tremendous, great game, great food, great company. So we actually had the mascot come, took pictures. The mascot made a big mess, and I made sure to let them know that it wasn't our students, but it was the mascot. So it was a good time. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you. So, like I said, I was able to attend the spelling bee, across the board. All of these students involved were amazing. Also, I attended there was a pancake dinner at Centennial High School that I attended that, for me, when we talk about civic engagement and certainly community involvement and how some of those soft skills that we certainly teach our students, this certainly, was a display of that. The collaboration that the district has with the Rotary Club as well as Fire. It was just amazing to see everybody there to support those organizations. It was amazing to see all the students that were there, very, energetic and enthused about being a part of, a collective, a collaborative, which, I'm certain, that they left with a sense of accomplishment and an understanding of the benefits of, synergistic approaches to, what they do as they enter in their career and life. So congratulations to all those students, those organizations, Mr. Lopez-Lara there at Centennial. Just a great evening. Enjoyed and great pancakes and sausage patties, by the way.
Excellent. And a lot has gone on now that we're almost in the middle of February. And the three things I wanted to highlight. First, a parent from Foothills invited myself to their pancake paper donation, and I wanted to highlight Dr. Benson, the principal there. He took his Saturday and gave a tour about the needs and informed the parents and the community members of what is needed and helped really clarified some of the questions the community had that have not been addressed before. And so he took his Saturday, so I wanted to thank him for that. The next is Country Meadows. They held their January 18th or 17th, it was a Tuesday night, their science night. And I was expecting booths, and I took my 8-year-old son there, and we walked in the door, and there were over 500 people, not including the volunteers. 14 organizations. It was organized by Miss Teklouv, I believe, and all the staff. It was amazing. Parents of the teachers were there volunteering. The city of Peoria had utility works there showing them about recycling. I was literally blown away, and it was all about science. On a side note, my son asked for a snake for his birthday, so thank you, because there were a lot of live snakes there. And last, we as a board were invited by Peoria United Parent Council, dedicated volunteers, and we went to a presentation offered by ASBA about the roles and responsibilities of governing board, and they had great questions. And so I just wanted to tell them thank you for spending their evening educating the community, as well as our administrators that were there spending long hours with the community answering questions. So with that, I appreciate your contributions to the district, and we look forward to going to more events. All right, next. Oh, and Ms. Linda Pellis-Thompson.
Well, thank you, President Sejas-Martinez. I have 3 announcements, 3 recognitions that we're very excited about. First, the Maricopa County Superintendent's Office is preparing to honor a select number of principals across Maricopa County who've developed a culture of learning, teacher retention, who've proven a history of raising academic achievements. And this is an award you don't apply for. This is an award that people look at in Maricopa, and I'm proud to share that Peoria Unified has 2 principals who are exemplary principal semifinalists. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Dale Schuff from Cheyenne Elementary and Dr. Eric Gundrum from Saguaro Ranch Elementary. We wish them a lot of luck, and as they move forward in this process. Very exciting. Second, I am proud to share that Foothills Fine Arts Academy not only makes great pancakes, but was also nominated for the 2018 Arizona Governor's Arts Award. And at this time, they are one of 3 finalists. There were, I believe, 17 when we started. This is a tremendous honor for Foothills, their principal, their staff, community, students certainly, and certainly Dr. Robert Benson and Mr. Panzer, who's also in charge of our arts program. We will know more at the end of March, and we'll keep you posted. And then the third, equally as impressive, the Space Center in Houston recently honored 6th grade science teacher at Zuni Hills, Jennifer Cheeseman, with the Cherry Brinley Outstanding Educator Award for Extraordinary Teaching. And she incorporates space exploration as part of her students' lives, and this is just another point of pride for our district, and we extend our congratulations to Mrs. Cheeseman. So 3 exciting awards. Thank you.
Exciting. Science and the arts. What a great combination. Next, moving on to public comment. Are there any requests to address the board? Excellent. Number 5, consent agenda. Does any board member want to pull anything from the consent agenda item? Okay, then I need a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
The motion reads that we approve the consent agenda item. Please cast your votes. Motion passes 4 and 1 not present. Number 6, reorder of agenda items. Do any board members want to rearrange the current agenda? All right, moving forward. Number 7.1, presentation of the Peoria Unified School District's annual financial audit. Mr. Ken Hicks.
Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Ms. Linda Pellis-Thompson, colleagues and community members, thank you very much for allowing us to do our annual audit presentation to the governing board and to our community. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Myers here in a second, but first I'd just like to thank her and her team. They do a tirelessly work on not just this, but many other things while juggling everything when we are down staff, transitioning staff, and it is very, very difficult. And so it is quick and easy to say thank you, but it is really, truly heartfelt of all the time and effort that they put in to do the best job we possibly can. Now, I always try to make people understand that she's put in a very difficult position because there are millions of transactions that happen and they end up there, they do not start there. And so our job is to maintain as much compliance as possible, but balanced with the fact that if we wanted to have no findings ever, we would double or triple the size of our business department. Our objective is not to do that. Our objective is to empower students every day to shape tomorrow, prepared to shape tomorrow. We are here for students and for the public education, and so we try to balance that as much as possible with what we are. So regardless of that, we do understand that it is taxpayer assets and we have to do everything we possibly can to document and be in compliance with everything we do. So with that, we also, before I introduce Ms. Michelle Myers, it is also a first that we actually have our auditor here too. So I'm very appreciative that Mr. Dennis Osich, he's a principal with CLA, our auditing firm. He has offered before, and we've never done it. We've normally just done presentations, but it just seemed like a good time to also have Dennis here with us tonight. So I just wanted to thank him for his time, for being here, and for making that offer. So I will turn it over to Ms. Michelle Myers for our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hicks, and good evening. President Zeha Martinez, members of the governing board, Mrs. Pallas Thompson, thank you for the opportunity to present our fiscal 17 financial audit this evening. As Mr. Hicks mentioned, we do have a guest with us, Mr. Dennis Osich, who's principal with Clifton Larson Allen, which is the CPA firm that conducted the fiscal 17 financial audit. Mr. Osich will present an overview of the audit process as well as specific information related to our comprehensive annual financial report, also known as a CAFR, and our single audit. I will also review the USFR compliance questionnaire findings related to fiscal 2017, as well as the steps the district is taking to address some of those findings. At this time now, I would like to invite Mr. Osich to join us for his portion of the presentation.
All right, thank you, President Zeha Martinez and the board members as well. I appreciate you having me here this evening. I'm going to do the same thing as Ken did before I get started because I will forget before I finish. I want to thank Ken and Michelle for all of the hard work that they do. I think Ken said it perfectly that their job is to be fiscally responsible and be compliant. And so that means, basically juggling the number of staff and trying to stay in compliance and have adequate reporting. And I'm glad to say and report today on the financial statements, and I'll go over, where the district ended up and just report on some of the significant items during the audit. So first of all, I want to start off, since I hadn't had an opportunity in the past to be able to present to the board, I wanted to just talk about what an audit is. We always hear about an audit, but what is it that we do as auditors? So we are basically going through and we're examining and verifying management's assertion. So the assertion that the financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And so our objective is to provide an opinion on the financial statements based on the work that we perform. So the opinion that we give, we're giving reasonable assurance. It's not absolute assurance because obviously we can't look at 100% of the transactions for especially a district this size or really any district. It wouldn't, again, make financial sense for us to do that. So we're looking at transactions based on a risk-based approach. And so that means that we're sampling certain areas. But again, it's on a risk-based approach, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means. Also, as part of the audit, then, we provide any type of findings or recommendations. So that may be in the form of we had corrections of errors that we would report, and we'd give recommendations on how to correct those going forward. But we also look at efficiencies as well. So we'll provide any type of recommendations to management regarding efficiencies. So when we do the audit and we report findings, we'll either report them in 3 different categories. As a controlled efficiency, which would be in the form of a management letter, significant deficiencies, or material weaknesses. So a controlled efficiency, things that we'd report to management and management letter, that would be something that goes to a letter to management. Normally findings that we had that either we didn't, in our opinion, feel were significant enough to raise to the attention of governance, or it was more efficiency related type of things where there could be improvements as far as efficiencies. If we had significant deficiencies, these are items where we feel it's important enough to bring to the attention of governance, but didn't cause a material misstatement. And then a material weakness would be a finding where it either resulted in a material audit adjustment as part of the audit, or we felt that the controls, there was a weakness in controls where it could cause a material weakness in the future. So I am happy to report that we did not report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, so there are none of those reported, and we did not issue a management letter this year. So as far as the audit itself, as I mentioned, we do it on a risk-based approach. And so what that means is that everyone hears risk and that sounds really scary. But every organization has risks. And so what we look at is the risks for each organization is a little bit different. It's based on their internal controls, staffing levels, circumstances within the district, whether it's economic. A lot of different things go into examining risk. And so we look at that and we obtain our understanding of where the risks might be based on inquiry with management. Some of you may have been chosen to talk to our auditors as well as part of some of our fraud inquiries and discussion of the audit. So we'll gain that through some of the inquiries we make of governance, as well as observations. So when we're out doing the audit, we'll do observations. We also have prior experience. We have been the auditors in the past, so we utilize that prior experience to understand where maybe we had audit adjustments in the past, or maybe where there are areas that we should, focus our attention. It's also gained through test work. So once we gain an understanding of what the control structures are, we actually test those controls. And so, it's good to have good design controls, but if they're not being implemented the way they were designed, then obviously that could be a weakness and could be a higher risk area for us as part of the audit. So we actually select a sample. This year we tested a sample of accounts payable disbursements, payroll disbursements. We also looked at various cash receipting, and so we use that as an assessment of risk as well. And then other factors, like I said, economic factors, or anything that might be communicated from us, from management to us as far as areas that we should be aware of. So the reporting package that you have, these are the documents that you should have: communication to governance, the comprehensive annual financial report, the single audit report, and then a USFR compliance questionnaire. Yep, right there. And so the management letter, then we would issue one if we did have a management letter during the year. So let me talk a little bit about the communication to governance. Basically, what this letter states is what I'm doing here today. I'm really communicating the audit to you. There's a few other things in here that I'll just touch on. In preparation of the financial statements, there's estimates that go into preparing those financial statements. And so we want to disclose to you what some of those estimates are, because those aren't necessarily actual figures, but they're estimates based on various factors. Examples of those are capital assets, the useful lives. That obviously impacts the value of the asset, because whether you value an asset at 10 years or 50 years, it has a significant impact on what that asset value is on the financial statement. So that's an estimate. The pension liability, that liability is calculated by an actuary who's actually hired by the Arizona State Retirement System. So that liability, that big $249 million that you see on your financial statements, that is actually put together by an actuary based on information provided by the Arizona State Retirement System. So you'll see some other items in there: post-employment benefits, the allocation of functional revenues, and then the estimate of the long-term compensated absence liability. So those are some of the significant estimates that go into preparing the financial statements. We also disclose if we had any difficulties that we encounter as part of the audit, which we did not. Any uncorrected misstatements. So what does that mean? It's very common when doing a financial statement audit that we find corrections that need to be made. And throughout our audit, we do find corrections. If they're material, we'll report those to you as material audit adjustments, which, as I mentioned, the district did not have any. But there's oftentimes journal entries that we would recommend, but they're not significant enough to record. So those would be uncorrected journal entries, and so we're required to disclose those as well. But there were no uncorrected journal entries at all this year. And then the other items just talk about really what our responsibilities are on some of the other information that's included in the financial statement, including the required supplementary information and the other supplementary information as well. The comprehensive annual financial report. So I just wanted to talk a little bit because when you read the opinion, it sounds like we give a lot of different opinions, and we do. There are the basic financial statements that you'll see, and what that is that's your government-wide financial statements, and then all of your major funds and non-major funds in the aggregate, and then the notes to the financial statements. So we're giving an opinion on those financial statements, but then you'll also see that there's combining and individual fund financial statements. So those are behind the notes to the financial statements, and those are basically all the other funds that are reported in the aggregate. They're considered non-major funds. They don't meet the criteria. They're not more than 10% of the assets, liabilities, revenues, or expenses of your total. And so we give an in relation to opinion. What that means is that the combining statements we're saying are fairly stated as they relate to the basic financial statements. And so really for us what that means is that for each major fund we set a materiality level, which is a dollar amount. But then for all the combining funds, it's a aggregate materiality level. So it's a higher materiality level is basically what that means. And then there's also required supplementary information, statistical information, and the introductory section. And those we disclaim an opinion. And what that means is that we do not give an opinion on that information. We do read that information for consistency with the basic financial statements and with the notes to the financial statements, but we don't render an opinion on that information. And then, so the big thing is we have rendered an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion on the financial statements, which basically says the financial statements were in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The single audit report. So all entities that receive federal funds, and if you spend more than $750,000 in a given year, then you're subject to what's called a single audit. And what that is, it's a compliance audit over major federal programs. And so there's certain requirements for determining what major federal programs are. But for the current fiscal year, it was Title I and the special education cluster that were the major federal programs. And so we test compliance and we give an opinion on compliance. And so there's 12 requirements that we test related to each federal program then that are major. And so we test those 12 compliance requirements and then we give an opinion. We did give a clean opinion on compliance. But you'll also see within that report, we also report on internal controls. So we don't give an opinion on internal controls, but we report on internal controls over compliance. And so again, if we had any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses, we'd report those to you, and there were none. You'll also see in that report, there's also a government auditing standards report. We do not give an opinion on that report. What that is we're reporting on internal controls over the financial statements. So again, if we had any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses related to the financial statements, those would be disclosed in there as well. But again, we did not have any. And then finally, that single audit reporting package gets submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. And that includes the financial statements, the single audit report, and then there's a form that's filled out, basically it's called a data collection form. As it kind of sounds like, it gathers data related to the district. So as I mentioned, we issued an unmodified opinion on the district's compliance over federal programs, and then we had no matters of noncompliance or any type of significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. So before I turn it over to Michelle to talk about the USFR, that's the last report that you have. I just want to touch briefly on it and basically say that really the Peoria Unified School District is doing a great job. I mean, you see the number of pages in that compliance questionnaire. This is required by the Auditor General. This is a questionnaire that we have to complete, and it's pretty black and white, yes or no. And so if we have any type of no's, then you'll see explanations for those in there. Most of those areas are in the area of attendance, and I will tell you with the number of school district audits that we do that is not uncommon because attendance is so disaggregated from the district itself, and there's always turnover usually at that level. But the other thing that you'll find is that, and Michelle will go over this more in detail, is that most of it is 1 out of 24 or 1 out of 15. So it's, luck of the auditors, we usually pick those items. Overall, I would say that Peoria Unified School District does a very good job. And then finally, just to wrap it up, just to give you an idea of how long we're out here. We generally come out here for field work, for preliminary work, usually in April or May, and we're usually here for about 2 weeks. And we usually have about a week in the office where we do a lot of planning, and we'll actually make a initial couple-day visit to pull a lot of samples. And then we usually come out in like the end of October, November timeframe to do our final work, which again is about 2 weeks. And then we've probably got another week or two of kind of wrapping things up and putting the financial statements together. So all in all, we have just a little over 600 hours that we put into doing the audit for Peoria Unified School District, just to give you an idea of the work that's involved. So, so at this point, I'm going to turn over to Michelle. Unless you have any questions for me specifically, I can answer those at this point.
I do have one question.
Sure.
You mentioned you're a principal.
Yes.
I know that you're not an elementary ed or a high school principal. Do you mind sharing your license or your credentials?
Yeah, so principal is equivalent to a partner in our firm, but we're a national firm, and so there's certain states that don't allow you to use the word principal or partner unless you have ownership. So we don't distinguish between non-equity and equity owner or partners in our firm, and so all partners in our firm are referred to as principals. So. But just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I've actually been doing government audits for a little over 20 years. Actually, I think this June will be 21 years. So I've been doing that. I started off in a small local firm, and then we were acquired, and then through different acquisitions, we ended up here with Clifton Larson Allen. So essentially, I've been with the same firm for those 21 years. So.
Well, thank you again for your time and your dedication to 600 hours. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Osich. So in addition to the federal and state audit requirements, publishing a CAFR provides an overview of the district as a whole to our community. Each year, the CAFR is published on the district's website, along with our annual budget and other financial reports. The information in the CAFR is evaluated by credit agencies when we sell bonds. And the data in the CAFR can actually affect our credit rating process. In addition to the audited financial statements in the CAFR, factors affecting the district's financial condition and long-term planning can be found in the transmittal letter, which is on pages 3 and 5 of the report. There are also financial analysis of district funds and budget highlights and economic factors affecting our budgeting, which can be found in the management discussion and analysis that is contained on pages 19 and 22, or I should say 19 through 22. The uniform system of financial records, which many people in the district affectionately refer to as the USFR, has been developed by the Office of the Auditor General and Arizona Department of Education pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute 15271. The USFR prescribes the minimum internal control policies and procedures that an Arizona school district must have for accounting, procurement, financial reporting, budgeting, attendance reporting, and various other compliance requirements. These policies and procedures are in conformity with generally accepted practices and federal and state law. District staff stay abreast of the USFR requirements by attending training, continuing education seminars with professional societies, also training through the Auditor General's Office, audit firms, and the Arizona Department of Education. As Dennis mentioned, we did have some findings this year. As part of the audit, the USFR Compliance Questionnaire is prepared by our audit firm. The questionnaire assists the Office of the Auditor General in determining if a school district has attained an acceptable degree of compliance with the requirements of the USFR. Last year, Mr. Hicks brought to the board a summary of our findings from fiscal year 13 through 16. This year, we're reporting on fiscal 17. And in a nutshell, we had 1 cash and revenue finding, 1 property control finding, 15 student attendance findings, and 2 student activities findings. So to talk about those a little more in detail, In the area of cash and revenues, the findings were related to 2 sample deposits that were not deposited within the 5-day requirement. For property control, the findings were related to 4 sample assets that did not agree to the location that was on the capital asset listing. They were basically at another school site. In the area of student attendance, samples of the district's 36,000 plus student attendance records had attendance calculation errors that were noted. Also, detailed in the student attendance findings were absence, enrollment, and withdrawal errors, and you'll see those are detailed here in this slide. In addition, student attendance documentation and reconciliation errors were also noted. The 2 findings in the student activities area were the result of 1 sample transaction where a reconciliation of cash collected to student fundraising sales was not attached to the transaction. And then the second finding was the lack of a club verifying that they had cash on hand prior to making an expenditure. Audits are an opportunity for improvement. We actually welcome them, and we take the findings seriously. The areas with the findings are being addressed by district administration, by ongoing staff training here at the district office and at all of our school sites, as we continue to educate folks on the USFR requirements as well as district policies and procedures. In addition, IMT staff have been conducting site-based student attendance compliance reviews. Once they do the review, they actually compile the information in a report, and they do share that with site administration and staff. So that concludes our audit presentation. We are all available to answer your questions, and thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you, and thank all of you. I have read through this in the last 15 minutes, every page. I'm kidding. What you just said, Ms. Meyer, about audits being an opportunity for improvement, thank you for that statement. Thank you for all the hours and the hard work. And, you know, from a finance regard, you know, it is, you know, not about, you know, looking out the window and pointing fingers. It is about looking in the mirror and understanding where we can be better. So thank you for, you know, having that tone and certainly thought, you know, as you go into this audit to understand, you know, we're going to have maybe some hurdles or hiccups here and there, but, you know, we're certainly transparent about those and certainly open to having those courageous conversations and you know, fixing those opportunities. So really appreciate the time and effort. And Mr. Hicks, your leadership in this department is one that's unparalleled, and it's not one that is certainly seen in this district, but it's certainly you have a great reputation, you know, throughout you know, really, you know, our state. You, team, Ms. Myers, certainly your commitment and passion is in high regard. So really appreciate your team effort in this. Thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
Thank you. That was the most thorough explanation of the auditing process that I've ever heard. That was excellent and truly informative and educational, so thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Hicks and Ms. Myers, for the hard work that you put in. I would say that's a glowing report, really. Thank you very much. I know that we'll address, say, for example, the attendance issues. I'm sure we have people on that already. And thank you for enlightening us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
I also wanted to say thank you. It's amazing. 600 hours is a tremendous amount of time put into it. I also want to thank Mr. Hicks for your hard work and Ms. Myers for your also tremendously hard work. So I'm glad that we had some issues, but they're being addressed, and I really appreciate everybody's hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll echo my fellow governing board members' comments. I had an opportunity also to look at the additional attachment and identifying that in the past, we did have opportunities, and a lot of them were rectified, so kudos to your whole department. A couple of things I wanted to highlight is the importance, and Mr. Hicks, thank you for taking the opportunity to answer my emails. You did basically answer most of them, and along with the presentation, thank you so much. One question as a governing board that I would like to pose to you guys is what recommendations as board policy and governance that we could help to support your efforts? Please bring them forward as we are in the process in 2018 to get ASBA to review our policies, so if any way we could do that. Another item that you highlighted is that we are a large district, but everybody is part of this story, and their contributions of taking attendance has an impact of our audit and also has an impact of our credit score, which eventually, if we're going out for a bond or have to sell bonds, it impacts us. So even though some teachers and administrators, we get comfortable in our four walls, we all have contributing responsibilities to making sure our audits and our data is completed correctly. So any way we can support you guys and those ideas, please bring them forward. Be more than happy to have a roundtable discussion.
Well, thank you for that. And just to share, everyone in the district has heard of the USFR, and folks will sometimes say, well, that means you suffer, USFR. We like to say in the business office, you support fabulous reporting. And that's true. We bring the positive twist to it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great.
Moving right along. 7.3, discussion and consideration of employee health benefits for the 2018-2019 school year. This is a discussion item first by Dr. Carter Davidson.
I was under the impression we were speaking about policy revision, so I apologize. So is that okay if we jump to that agenda item, President Ceja Martinez?
So 7.3 is for discussion, and 7.4 is approval of employee health benefits for 2018-2019, which is an action item. Oh, hold on, pardon me. Oh, yes, underneath my
I can certainly be flexible, but I just wanted to.
Underneath my Post-it. Thank you for that. 7.2, proposed changes to policy GDF, support staff hiring, and GDFA, support staff qualifications and requirements.
Thank you, President Ceja Martinez, members of the board, Ms. Pals Thompson. Tonight I come to you, and you just recently spoke about that with Ms. Myers, the hope and desire for us to update our policy manual. And today I'm bringing to you what I would say is what I would hope to be as a first read of policy GDF, which is also kind of correlates with GDFA, all about hiring our support staff. And if you've had a chance to look at it at all, my hopes for revision are very simple. On GDF, the support staff hiring, ASBA recommends that we really modify the language simply to include information about the fingerprint clearance card and how it is either issued or denied and how that plays into the hiring of our support staff. It also provides us information on how we can share that information with fellow school districts from around the valley. So that is really the only change to policy GDF that I'd like to recommend as a first read. The hope tonight would be that I'll certainly answer any questions or take any recommendations you may have, and then you would see it at our next meeting as a second read in the consent agenda. As you know, this is part of our practice for updating policy, and then I envision over the next many months you'll see many of your administrators here presenting to you policy and recommended policy changes. On GDFA, very similar, and it just kind of tag team and went right along with that other policy. Again, you'll see information added there about how we use fingerprint clearance cards as a condition for employment. Again, it speaks to how we may release the results of those background checks and that information, how we can communicate it. It also talks a little bit about how we may not charge for the fingerprints until after the fact, so we work with our support staff on that at point of hire. And again, I didn't see any major changes other than the language as it applies to the law. What I provided you at your desk or your chairs this evening is GDFA, the 2017 version, and I thought, hey, if I'm here to talk to you about changes from 2014, I certainly want to bring in 2017 because we'd like to do this all at once. And the major change to the 2017 policy on GDFA is the information about school bus drivers. Just recently, as of 2017, the law changed to where bus drivers need to have an actual fingerprint clearance card, that IVP card that most of us certified staff also hold. So we just wanted to make certain that was in there, and so ultimately at the second read, with your approval, you will see a combined version for us to consider adopting as part of our policy. So that's a lot of information I just gave you. It really is all about compliance with our law, and I'll certainly answer any questions if I can.
Mrs. Connect?
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
No questions.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes, thank you. So did I see, I don't know if it was in the prior doc, that it said that we would actually bring an individual on prior to getting the results from the fingerprint process?
That has been a practice that has happened before, where we utilize a background check and actually work through the Department of Public Safety. They would send us a little document with information about the applicant. So that has happened, yes, sir.
Okay. So just for my own edification, a background check versus a fingerprint process, what information would we garner from a fingerprint that we may not from just a standard background check?
They simply have more access to a variety of databases, larger, I guess, casting a larger net in regards to potential crimes or things that an applicant might have been involved in from the past.
Sure. No, I gotcha. So, and the reason I'm just making these statements is, as a district, right, we're responsible for, 37,000 plus, youth and our associates, quite frankly. And, we always want to make sure that, that everybody's in a certainly safe, yes, and supportive, but safe environment. I know this wasn't one of the changes, but I apologize. I'm kind of probably stepping out of the highlights, but bullet letter B in GDFA and the doc that we have actually in front of us, right? It says personnel who are previously employed by the district and who reestablish employment with the district within 1 year after the date that the employee terminated employment with the district. That is a situation where they would not have to be re-fingerprinted. Am I reading that correct?
That is true, but I will tell you at point of hire, we always do a background check again.
Okay. Yeah, I guess in my mind, 12 months, is a good amount of time for, something or anything could happen, right, in that time frame. So, I guess for me, I'm wondering if that should be changed to, requiring, another fingerprint upon return.
Mr. Sandoval, I believe the reason why it states that is because once the individual has the fingerprint clearance card through the Department of Public Safety, anytime they commit a crime or of any type, it is reported through the superintendent's office, which then goes to HR. So I think that's what they're saying. These fingerprint clearance cards typically last up to 8 years, and so it's connected to. So I believe that's why it's telling you wouldn't have to do that.
Gotcha. So once they're fingerprinted, anything that takes place will be notified.
Correct, sir.
Within an 8-year time frame.
You have to re-update your card every 8 years, but that you're just in the loop now from our communication standpoint.
I gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Mrs. Sejar Martinez.
Mrs. Connect?
And I think if I read that right, we may hire somebody before that clearance card is issued, but we wouldn't put them in a supervisory position with children until that card was received.
That is correct. Yeah. They would not be by themselves with students.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the presentation. One, highlighting safety. And maybe you could shed some light. Why aren't governing board members a part of the conversation of a fingerprint card?
That is a great question, and I simply do not have an answer right now, but I can find out that answer and come back to you.
I wonder if that's a state legislation issue, why none of us have, well, I have mine, but just out of curiosity, if we're interacting with our students.
But we usually don't interact with students, other than, public relations, kind of visiting campuses with other administrators.
True, if we're being chaperoned. Right. So, okay, thank you. I can look into that. No need. I was just curious why going through the list. And the other thing is just highlighting that this is first read and that the community does have an opportunity to bring feedback or staff any recommendations. So I appreciate that and pretty straightforward. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
right, and this is first read, so now we're ready to go on to the next item. I'm working on the hour and a half time frame here. 7.3, discussion and consideration of employee health benefits for 2018-2019. Dr. Carter Davidson.
Thank you, President Sam Martinez, members of the board, superintendent there. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity tonight. I know this is something that our board has been asking about. Just a brief overview of the benefits that we offer our employees. Tonight I have two guests with me, Mr. Ken Hicks, who is your Chief Financial Officer, and Ms. Christy Davis, who works really close with me day in and day out as benefits and compensation manager. So we're excited to have them here, and I'm going to just start off by showing you our agenda tonight, and we will try to be as fast as possible, but I am going to highlight a little bit about our Arizona State retirement system. This is something that when you consider attracting, recruiting, and retaining staff that we don't often speak about because it's just the norm for those of us that work as a state employee, but if you're a young teacher and you can see into the future, this is something that's significant. Just heard just a couple of days ago that our plan in the state is one of the top 10 retirement plans, pension plans for educators across the nation. So it's awesome to know that that's coming for us one day. Christy will speak a little bit to current offerings for our employees, and Mr. Hicks will speak a little bit about our role and how we structure our benefits on behalf of our partnership with Valley Schools. So as we dig into our Arizona State retirement system, please note that it is a cost-sharing item, meaning we as a district pay a certain amount into the retirement system, and the employees are also required to pay a certain amount or a certain percentage into that benefit there. You can see it's been around for a long, long time. It is supported by state statute, and you know, as it talks about the age and the time frame, there's a variety of ways in which you can reach retirement, years of service, age, and that continues to change. Most recently, it went from just a simple point system for those of us that have been in the system for a period of time to now you must be at least 55 years old. So they're always looking to make those changes, I think, based on needs. The important thing, though, even though as we talk about it being just an exciting benefit for our people, it is not meant to cover 100% of your retirement income needs. So that's something we always need to make sure our employees understand. And also you can see here that it is a very large and fully funded, I guess, I don't know, retirement plan, over $40 billion currently in the system right now. It is guaranteed. That's also another beautiful piece to this. And again, we're speaking to the formula a little bit there. I've already spoke to the cost sharing. There's a variety of options when you retire. As you can see here, there's 7 different options our staff or people within the system can choose from. And again, I have already highlighted that it is mandatory. Our employees don't have a chance to opt out of this. You can also see here as part of the retirement plan and system, there's a variety of options for our employees: long-term disability, medical and dental coverage, obviously a premium benefit that exists. You can also select, if you choose, a survivor benefit that would reduce the amount you would bring in, but perhaps if an unfortunate experience occurred for you, you could leave some of that benefit to your family. And then it also, it doesn't matter where you are, meaning it's portable there, that you can retain the membership no matter where you are. So those are just a few things about the state retirement system, and I'll turn it over now to Ms. Davis to speak to our current offerings.
Do you mind if we pause real quick, since ASRS is separate, a little bit separate from the health benefits?
Certainly. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them, yes.
Does anybody want to ask questions about the retirement system?
I think my only comment is really just in and around. I know as we go through the budget, and I know we have an increase in the contributions, with our teachers, just in making sure that as we look at our budgets, how we can, make sure that the teachers aren't impacted, right? So it becomes kind of a wash, if you will, as we look moving forward. So I know we're looking at that, but that's, really my comment.
Well, I will, when I saw this presentation, this is the life I live in, so I got super excited to highlight the fact that this is a retention benefit. If teachers knew how great our defined benefit, there are two types, defined benefit and defined contributions, and this one's a defined benefit. Teachers, right, staff have what's the mandated 11.25%? So 11.25? 11.8?
It will be going up, yeah.
So employees contribute 11.8%, and then as you mentioned, there's cost sharing, but I want to highlight that there's a vesting schedule. A vesting schedule is you have to work within the system 10 years. If you leave before that, that money that that it was contributed is forfeited. So that is another highlighted benefit to retaining in the Peoria School District, that you maintain that vesting schedule.
So, Madam President, members of the board, there is a vesting schedule. It actually starts at 5 years, and it's a sliding scale. At 10 years, 100% vested. So you don't forfeit if you leave before the 10 years. And normally, I would be recommending keep it in no matter what, because we want people coming back and working in school systems or in public entities. But it is not. You don't forfeit before 10 years.
Great point, because you use sliding or a stepladder or all or nothing. So in our district is that sliding. Employees can contribute additional monies. The IRS has the 402G limits. You can contribute if you're under 58, an additional $18,500. So if you would like to do that. But main thing I want to highlight the vesting schedule, and that it is going up. It is mandated. It is a great benefit, and it's a great retaining tool for our district and our employees. So thank you for sharing that.
President Sejam Martinez, before Ms. Davis comes up, I think Mr. Hicks at the end will speak a little bit to how we are supporting training our staff on the additional contributions they can make in the 403B and the 457 accounts for retirement.
Perfect. And I was going to ask how many of our employees have registered the ASRS, if we can get some support for them to log on during professional development, because you also have to set up your benefits. If you don't set up your benefits, your beneficiaries, it will be very challenging for your beneficiaries to go through that process.
At point of hire, each and every one of our employees has to enroll with the
Fabulous.
Arizona State Retirement System. So.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Good evening, President Sejam Martinez, board members, Ms. Pallas-Thompson. I'm very excited this evening to speak to you about our benefits. Benefits are very exciting to me because I get to go out and interact with the employees and make them aware of what a lot of them don't know we offer. I am pleased to say, though, that with preparing this presentation, I realized that a high percentage of our employees actually are participating in our medical benefits plan. 83% of the employees that are eligible for our medical plan do enroll in our medical plan. So I was very excited to see that. We are currently offering 3 medical plans to our employees through the United Healthcare system, through the Choice Plus network, which gives them an option to not have to get locked into a doctor. They get to pick and go wherever they would like as long as it's within the network. The 3 plans that they can choose are traditional plans, 2 buy-up plans. Those 2 buy-up plans are also associated with health savings accounts to help them put pre-tax dollars away to offset those medical benefits. Preventative services on our medical plans are all covered at 100%. So that is something that we have been really highlighting for the last few years, really getting the employees out there and focusing on their wellness. If we can catch something on a preventative nature, we would much rather pay for those preventative visits than a diagnostic visit on the other side of that. We also have a wellness program that is associated with our medical plan. Currently, over 1,100 people are participating in that wellness program, which is up from about 50% last year. We had just under 600 people participating last year. So with our new online electronic wellness program, we really saw an increase in participation. Part of the United Healthcare system also has a Real Appeal program, which is a free weight loss program for anybody that is participating on our plan. So we've seen a huge increase in participation in that. Unfortunately, I cannot get any numbers due to HIPAA. They will not let me know how many people are currently participating in that, but we really have seen a lot of action in that, just with information that has been requested of us on how to enroll in that product. With United Healthcare, we also get virtual visits. If an employee has a sick child at home or they are sick themselves and they really just can't get out and go down to a doctor, they can actually log onto their computer or onto their mobile app and have a visit with a doctor. for your minor things such as sinus infection, a rash, a fever, sore throat, something that more than likely isn't too critical, but they just don't have the time to make it over to a facility to be treated. They actually can do that online now, which is a great benefit for them to utilize that tool. We also have Care 24 options, which is a nursing line, a financial wellness line, a legal wellness, where they can call 24/7 and get support with anything that they have going on. We have two options that we offer for our dental insurance. One is through Delta Dental. That is our PPO plan. It is a traditional PPO plan. As long as you are going to a dentist in our PPO network, you don't get locked into a dentist. We increased that last year. We increased our percentages of coverage, and we have seen a huge utilization in that product as well. We have an HMO plan, which is slightly less expensive to our employees, but it is a traditional HMO plan where you are locked into a dentist. So if you're looking for just a dentist that you just want to go have services, cleanings, things like that, and you're not locked into your dentist like I am, I won't change, 18 years with the same one, HMO plan would be your option. But with both plans, you do get orthodontic coverage for for yourself or for your family members. We offer a vision plan to our employees as well. Our vision coverage is through VSP. It allows you one eye exam a year, lenses once a year, frames every 2 years, and it also has a diabetic eye care program associated with it, encouraging individuals to go have those testings done. We offer a short-term disability product to our employees as well. This is an income replacement plan. If an employee were to be off work for more than 5 days, they would be able to more than 5 days for a medical reason, they would be able to submit a claim to the insurance carrier. They can choose to elect a coverage up to 66 2/3% of their current salary. Last year, we made the change to Colonial Life, replacing our AFLAC coverage. We replaced the AFLAC coverage strongly at the urging of our staff. We were receiving tons of complaints from the employees, trying to file claims, not getting customer service. So we asked for a bid through Valley Schools. They came back with Colonial. Colonial gave us a guarantee issue. Same coverages at cheaper premiums for all of our employees. So far, we have had tremendous support from the employees. Unfortunately, we have had employees that have had to file claims under this, but have had great customer service from Colonial. We also offer 2 flexible spending accounts. One is for unreimbursed medical expenses. You can put pre-tax dollars away to help offset any expenses that you might have for medical reasons, braces, prescriptions, those types of things. We also do that for dependent care, for daycare expenses as well. Life insurance is offered as well to all of our employees. Even if an employee does not choose to enroll in our medical benefits, as a full-time employee, they would still be eligible for a life insurance policy that we pay for, which is 1 times their annual salary. They can also elect optional life insurance for themselves and their dependents in increments of $10,000. Some of the exciting things that we've been trying to educate the employees on is the benefits that come with this life insurance policy. There's a travel assistance policy, so if you're traveling more than 100 miles away from home and you run into a situation, they are there to assist you with that. Funeral planning expenses, and accelerated benefit as well. So if you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness, you can actually request for up to 80% of your policy to be paid out. I believe Mr. Hicks will come. Is there any questions for me before Mr. Hicks comes up?
Mrs. Connect?
Just one category of insurance that I thought might be of benefit, I don't know if we've explored it, is long-term care insurance.
We have requested long-term care, a quote to be researched. Unfortunately, no one is offering that yet. We have not given up on that. We are still looking into that because I too feel that is a very needed benefit. And when I first came to Peoria, it was something that was offered, but the company that was offering it chose to stop offering it. So we have been searching for a replacement.
I see. Well, thank you. Thank you for looking into that.
Mr. Sandoval?
Quick question for you. So was it the wellness program that we increased year over year by 50%? Was that correct?
We did increase over 50% this last year participation, yes.
Okay. And what was that a result of? And that's congratulations. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is, when we take a look at our entire employee base, and that's still, I don't know if all of them are eligible for, I'm assuming they are, for the wellness program?
The only employees eligible are the employees that are on our medical plan because it is tied to our medical plan. We are currently working for this next year to see if we can't start incorporating all employees into the plan and adding them to the platform.
And it was about 82%, is that correct? 83% that are?
83% of our medically eligible employees that participate in the plan, and 39% of them are participating in the wellness program currently.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And I'm just using round numbers of, we have approximately 4,000 employees, and then, 82% of that takes us down to, what, 3,200 roughly. So, 1,100 now that are part of the wellness program, we're about 33% of that number, right?
Yes, correct.
So, I'm certain, whatever success that we realize to increase the participation in the wellness program, we'll continue to do a lot more of that to try to, increase that 33% to, 40, 50, and then continuing to grow that. Thank you.
Oh, yes, and thank you, Mr. Hicks. We have recently added a wellness champion program where we have reached out to the employees in the district to ask for a champion at each site and location to help carry our message of wellness out to all of our locations. There's 3 of us in the benefits department, so we can't clearly get out to everyone, so we have enlisted the help of these wellness champions. So we hope to continue to grow the program through that as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is there a reward for our wellness champions on the site?
There is not currently a reward. It is strictly a volunteer program.
Let's think about how to thank them for that.
Well, they do get points for participating as a champion, but there's no compensation for it.
Got it. Points is good. Good.
Excellent, great questions. And I just wanted to highlight, thank you for listening to the employees, for giving that feedback and identifying that there was an opportunity to change vendors. And ultimately, it's a great thing to model for our students as well as a wellness work-life balance. So that's a great model. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. So one, I was just asking Ms. Davis if, so we just threw out there, they get points. What does points mean in that sense? And actually, part of our structure is in the wellness program, the more points you get, if you exceed 65,000 points, you receive $775. $775 in your HSA program. So some of us will be out Saturday at the Peoria 5K-ish to get 5,000 points so that I could hopefully get to my 65,000 points. So we're working on it. But that includes encouraging people to get their wellness exam, go get your eyes checked, do your dental. So the more things that you're doing in a wellness environment, the more points you're going to get. And then once you cross that line, we were going to financially reward all employees that make that with the $775. And that is an increase from last year. And so that's part of our, when we're looking at our benefits and our design and how we do have the ability to customize all of our benefit plans, we look at how much do we give automatically for HSA, and then how much do we get once they complete a certain required number of activities in our wellness plan in that sense. So just jumping, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I know you guys are aware, and I know I talked briefly a little bit at the board retreat about our benefit structure, and we go through Valley schools, and that allows us to actually use almost, it's a little over 27,000. They just signed up another district, so it's continuing to grow. So they have the buying power of nearly 30,000 insurable lives when they're going forward, and not just us. And even though we might have 4,000 employees, we don't have 4,000 eligible benefited employees. And so that's closer to 3,500 employees in that sense. The one difficult that a lot of people have, and I had it when I was in a previous district, we were a fully insured product. And so it'd be very easy to go get quotes. Hey, how much is it? This is our design plan. What is it going to cost? We don't live in a fully insured world, because once you really, get to a certain size, the law of large numbers really and the predictability of claims become very evident. And what you really want is a more self-funded model, so that as you're having and you design your plans very well, you could see good years. Those good years, the district retains that money. If you have a fully insured plan and you have a good year, the company retains that good years. And guess what? When you have a bad year, you pay for it the following year and maybe every year. So they normally never lose, and it only loses for the district. But when you have a fully self-insured plan, it's different. And the difficulty with that is self-insured plans are very hard to just compare. Oh, let me just compare yours to mine. Because really, it's about the claims. We're only playing out what the expense is. And so a lot of what we do and what I appreciate from Valley Schools on an annual basis, which I don't know how long they've been doing it, but for the last 3 years, they actually have hired a third party to do what's called a total cost of care. And so really what they're looking at is multiple types of health needs, and if you use either Blue Cross, Aetna, or United Healthcare at their best discounted, what is the total cost, and combine them all and see who has the best network. Because when we're in a self-insured environment, we are purchasing the network because they are still our claims and we're paying the claims, and we pay for a third party to help administer those claims. And so what we're looking at is how good is that total cost of care. And I would say over 3 years, 2 years, United Healthcare has been better. 1 year it is not, and normally it's went around 98, within less than 2% of how good or bad it is in that sense. Or I don't want to say bad, but, and so we look at that comparison in that sense. We receive support from Valley Schools, so that's an annual basis. We want to know, do we have a good structure of the access to the network? We personally customize the design of all of our plans, so we don't just pick something off the shelf and say we're going to take that plan. We actually meet with, we've now incorporated into our budget team, but we look with an actuarial, we look at a third party, Hayes, Jameson comes in, work with United Healthcare, and we look at their book of business and what other schools are doing, what we're doing, where the high cost claims are, and we can make modifications within our plan to perfectly design our plan for what we're looking for and what best meets our needs. We do have also Valley Schools provides monthly and quarterly educational, and so I know Christy and her team will go out to learn a little bit more about something, or especially when we had the Affordable Care Act coming on and what our new needs are, they were going out and getting trained on a regular basis. Valley Schools also provided additional benefits to cover some of those. We also had I know I'm jumping around, the wellness coordinator that they've assigned to our district, which has been a huge benefit as well. The wellness coordinator helped this year securing, I think I've mentioned this, I know I've mentioned it many times, so I don't know if I mentioned it to the board, but this year's our district health fair was unbelievable. So if you went there and you saw the line past the flagpole going down the line down the parking lot at Centennial, it was quite amazing. I want to say there was like 1,200 people there. Almost every year in 3 or 4 years, it has doubled the size, and it just continues to astound me. What was so great about this year also that made Christy and her team's life a little easier is Valley Schools provided a wellness coordinator, and they facilitated securing all the vendors to show up and set up and help them so that Christy didn't have to worry about calling every single vendor. Are you going to be here? What are you going to be? Here's where you're going to be. They coordinated all of that to help with assisting to make that a success, and it was a huge success. Excuse me. We also get assistance. Do we call them enrollers? The Valley Schools is provided benefit enrollers. So they'll spend a couple days learning our entire detail of our plan, and they will go outside to every single site. This year, every site. Last year was not every site. But they'll go around to every single site and assist everybody with enrolling to make the best decisions for them to get enrolled into our system. And so that is a huge benefit. They've committed to that if we have every single site have the same exact time, they will have 42, 43 people out here to all be there to support every single site. Now, we know that won't happen, but they will provide benefit support at every single site at a time to help people make those decisions and have somebody you could ask a question right then and there. We continue to communicate out all of our benefits. So I know they do brain sharks to help demonstrate exactly what they are. We put them in employee bulletins with the help of Ms. Airy. Emails, the benefit portal. We push out as much information on our benefits as much as possible. But in addition, I know Christy has teamed up with payroll, and they've actually won an award, a best practice award, that they go around to every single site during lunchtime at least once a year, and they're just there available for questions on anything benefits, payroll related, to help them make the best decisions. This last bullet point, you could see that we also have been going around this year. We're going around to all of our sites to put some training in on our 403Bs and 457s. So I know a few of us sat through that this week, and our DAC staff meeting this week when we had a little overview where they do hit some of the state retirement that we started with, but then understanding which you obviously understand, is that time is a huge benefit when you're investing in with a compound interest and how it works, that something starting as soon as you possibly can is better than anything you can possibly do, even when you do a lot later on. That little bit starting out as soon as possible has a huge, and so we provide that education. Now, I would love to say all of that is just great because we've thought about it, but reality is that the IRS audits us. Hey, what are we doing to try to get more people involved? And so some districts around us have been audited, so we're like, hey, we better do something. So we're working with partners to satisfy that and try to get out in front of them so that we could show this is what we're doing. We're getting out and educating and communicating as much to our staff as possible. And so that is hopefully a good overview of all of our benefits, what we provide, and I'll stand for any questions.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
No, that was a great presentation. I have no questions. Thank you.
Mrs. Connect?
Mr. Hicks, the other idea that we've talked about, and maybe something to pose to Valley Schools, is the idea of, given the fact that we have so many employees, whether it makes sense for us to have a facility with a physician and a PA available under our own roof. So maybe there's some cost savings there, and could be a very convenient
If
tool
it's
for our
okay, I'll
employees.
have Ms.
Yeah.
Davis come up and talk. We've been actually talking with them
Good.
a lot. I'm probably not the best person because I like to see the numbers and I need to know that it pays for itself in other sense, but Christy can talk about what we've already had some conversation.
Thank you, Christy.
He likes to see the numbers. I like to see the people. We're a great combination. We actually have had multiple conversations with them. We've had several vendors come out and meet with us in the last few years. Nothing has been able to be solidified yet. So far, everyone wants Peoria to foot the bill up front. We don't have $1 million to start a facility. We have thought, are there any schools that we can put one on? Is there something we can do? So they are still currently in the process of that. They are seeing if we can partner with some of our neighboring districts and do one for more than just us, maybe include Deer Valley, Glendale, Washington, one where it's just for our employees, or maybe just us in Deer Valley, wherever our boundaries meet. But it is definitely something that has been on the burner with them. We just haven't been able to make it work yet.
Okay.
Mr. Sandoval?
Thank you. So with that model that Ms. Connect just brought up, I mean, are there other districts that are doing that, and have we taken a look at it to understand the benefits, not only from a humanistic perspective, but also financial?
Currently, there are no districts near us that are doing it. I believe there was one in the East Valley that is that's participating with a clinic that was already open. It's just not feasible for our employees to go. I believe the clinic is around Camelback and 22nd Street, so it's just a little too far for our employees to go to.
Gotcha. So, but if that model is working and could be seen as a best practice, just wondering if there may be a clinic, in our area that we might be able to partner with. But I'm sure you guys are looking at all that. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Question, Mr. Hicks, on the cost of care analysis. It sounds like Valley Schools provides that once a year. What time frame is that? Is that the beginning of the school year? And my question is this: I mean, is there a way that once that is presented, that we can get a look at that as well?
Madam President, members of the board, it's done annually. I think we get the report in November, and so if we could request a copy of that, we could forward it on to the board. And so, yeah, around November is when we get that analysis, and I think it's done for the previous fiscal year.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you again. So I would echo the cost of care analysis and being proactive, and to highlight that health insurance in general is costly. That's not a secret. And your approach with listening to employees, when I was an employee, I saw the costs go up. We see it all the way around us. I would love to see if we can get a roundtable discussion with our staff of deciding if they want to reduce the premiums, what are they going to be willing to give up? That's essentially what it comes down to, because we do have, based on this information, a lot of options, a lot of rewards, and so looking at that cost of coverage, and they get some education on that, along with opportunities to say, okay, we don't use this, this is what the district uses, and how can we potentially reduce that cost? Also, what % of staff receive the $750 benefit? So if 83% of employees qualify or are participating, 111 people are now participating in the wellness. It's gone up. Of those participating, how many qualify for the $750? I would be interested in knowing that. And then the last request would be, since you have long lines, I hear great things about the district health fair. If somehow we can coordinate it with that welcome back to school, and if we have a welcoming back ceremony, if Valley Schools is already promoting their vendors, and we have a coordination of costs and reducing welcomes back, we can get that barbecue family, here's wellness, all encompassing in one event, or even 2 times a year, welcome back, and maybe in the new year.
Madam President, members of the board, I will task Christy and her team to look into that. And we'll also get back the information of the percentage of staff that get the $775. That amount did raise, so last year was a lesser amount, so we'll get the amount from last year, because we only do that on an annual basis in July for those that qualified the previous year. And just as a FYI for all board members, we actually do talk to our budget team and the teachers and find out, and what we've had historically is, please don't spend money that could be for compensation to reduce the cost of benefits. Our benefits have been flat. There's been no increases on those for over 4 years, and so they would prefer to see the money in the compensation. But we continue to ask that question. We will continue to ask that question.
Excellent. Is there a survey that is sent out that we could get out?
The first couple of years we talked about it as we went around to employee chats. After that, we just talked about it in the budget team with our representatives and associations.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, one last comment. Mr. Hicks, I know I've always brought up, making sure from a best practice regard that we, go out for bid periodically, whether it's every 3 years or 5 years. I don't disagree. I mean, there's economies of scale or purchasing in numbers, where there's going to be some savings, right? But I think from a best practice regard, as well as ensuring that we're always providing world-class benefits to our associates, it doesn't hurt to always ask periodically, and to continue to challenge our partners, so they will continue to work and be very thoughtful on our behalf.
Madam President, members of the board, just because it's a very difficult apples to oranges, we actually do compare so other self-insured plans. So we'll go to and do public records requests, and Valley Schools will, to collect what the fixed expense are. So there's a cost we spend, about $56 per employee per month, to pay for all those other that are combined in there, the stop loss, the third-party management. And so we actually do go out and verify not just the cost of care to make sure the network's a very good deal, but then we're also looking at that fixed expense and what that is, what level the stop loss levels are, so that we can get as much apples to verify that other networks or other self-insured plans are not doing better than we are. And on the flip side, I also listen to anybody who wants to come and give us a little pitch, and I've talked to a couple of them, and they'll say, hey, we have a hybrid plan where you save, you get some of the savings if you have a better than 85% year, and anything over that, we keep the savings, and some of those. So I do look and listen to everything, because, and we also have, when we're sitting in our renewals, the third-party actuarial from Hayes will be looking at what you should be changing and what you can do to make it more cost efficient, or in line with all the others. If everybody's doing something else and we're doing something different that's not beneficial, we're told about it. So we do look at all those areas. And we'll continue.
I would love to have a study session just dedicated to health benefit, that cost analysis in the future, so that way we can start preparing for the following year. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to 7.4. It is an action item, approval of employee health benefits for 2018-2019 school year.
Good evening again. President Sam Martinez, members of the board, Ms. Linda Pallas Thompson. This agenda item is actually a voting agenda item, and one of which we hope after the material you were just given, you could consider the presentation that Ms. Davis will give about what our hopes are for offering our employees. And I want to highlight and steal a little bit of her thunder right now that this will be the 6th year in a row that Peoria has been able to offer a comprehensive benefits package with no additional cost to its employees. So we're really excited about that, and I'll let Ms. Davis come up and really share the details. So.
Evening again. I will correct Dr. Davidson on one thing, 6th year in a row for medical. So this will be 6 years with no premium increases on our medical benefits. So very excited, 6 years in a row, almost unheard of, to not have any type of increase in your medical premiums. We like to say that wellness must be doing something if we're able to keep our premiums flat for 6 years in a row. The only changes that we will be recommending this year on our medical plans are due to IRS changes. The deductibles will need to increase on our high deductible plans from $1,300 to $1,400 and from $2,600 to $2,700, and that is strictly to keep us in compliance with the IRS regulations. These would be the employee premiums for the employee-only premium plans for the 3 options. No premium cost again this year on either of the high deductible plans. Employee and spouse premiums, employee and children, and family premiums. And again, we will have the dual family premium this year where you get the discount if both you and your spouse are members of the Peoria School District family. Dental and vision this year. Delta Dental, again, no rate increase. We will be holding steady this year without a premium increase. We are recommending a change to our TDA dental plan. TDA, again, not loved by the employees. It was a little difficult to use. No out-of-state coverage. So if you have a child going to school out of state, your only option was the PPO plan, which is a little more expensive for families. So we are recommending this year to move from that plan to Cigna DHMO. It is a nationwide network, so you would be able to get that coverage if you have children out of the state. It is expanded coverage. It actually will have 4 cleanings on that plan instead of the standard 2. And the premiums will be less than what they are currently paying on the TDA HMO plan. Vision will see a slight increase in premiums. It will be the first increase that we have seen in 2 years. It's about 60 cents for an employee. There will be a decrease to employee and spouse coverage, however. These will be the premiums for our dental for this next year. Currently, a single person on this plan has no premium cost, but the district is paying $10.61. If we move to the Cigna plan, employees will still pay no premium for themselves, and the district will pay $9.95. Family coverage will go from $25.81 at a district cost to $24.21. Employees will see a decrease of about $1. No change at all in our premiums to the district or to employees on the Delta PPO plan, and a slight increase in the vision coverage, about 60 cents on an employee-only on the employee-only product. Voluntary benefits, which include our accidental coverages through colonial hospitalization, no premium increase. This will be our 2nd year with them, and we asked for a guarantee issue. They have issued a guarantee issue again for us this year. This is not standard. They don't normally do 2 guarantee issues. Guarantee issue means that an employee can enroll in this product without having to go through medical underwriting. They are guaranteed coverage if they enroll in the product. So they will be doing this for the 2nd year in a row for us at no rate increase. No rate increase for our short-term disability, our life insurance, or our EAP program, and there is a decrease in the cost the district pays for the employees that participate in the flexible spending accounts. Overall, a very exciting, short but very exciting renewal for us this year.
Mrs. Knecht? Mrs. Pingarelli?
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm happy to see that there hasn't been a change in the medical costs for 6 years. I've always worked at really huge institutions, and my cost has always been a little bit less than that. But I really appreciate all the hard work that you've done, and I'm glad that they've maintained, stable for 6 years. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of our associates, making sure, again, that we are providing that very elite benefit package. Quick question. Now, from an open enrollment perspective, when does all that take place within the district?
With board approval on the premiums and the package this evening, we will proceed with creating our open enrollment. Open enrollment will run from April 16th to May 16th this year, with any elected changes going effective July 1st.
Perfect. And so with that said, thank you for sharing this in a timely fashion, and allowing us to take a look at it and giving us the time to make any adaptations if needed. So really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I echo that as well. I do have just one question. Are the premiums per pay period?
These are the per month pay periods. I apologize for not explaining that. These
okay,
are per
no
month.
problem. And I'm just thinking a teacher salary, which we would love to have more money, but the impact if the community could see that health insurance is literally one whole paycheck for a month. So with that being said, I appreciate all your hard work and the options that we have. We have some work to do at the state level, but thank you again for keeping those costs stable. So with that, I need a motion.
Motion to approve the employee health benefits for the 2018-2019 school year.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the health benefits for 2018-19. Please cast your vote. Motion passes 4 and 1 absent. Moving on to 7.5 for discussion and information on car allowance and staff reimbursement for travel and mileage. Dr. Carter Davidson.
Good evening again, members of the board, President Sam Martinez, Ms. Pallas Thompson. I'm here this evening to just have some conversation with you on our current practices as it relates to either car allowance or travel reimbursement. So tonight, the rationale, we started having a conversation in September of this past year, and also, as we further explore those conversations or those pieces tonight, it could potentially have an impact on contracts too, depending upon the guidance you give. And so that's the rationale for our presentation. We hope to have our contracts out in early March, and in some cases we have for administrators up through April 15th, but we certainly look forward to your guidance on this topic. As for car allowances, and that's where we're going to start our presentation tonight, car allowances have been a long-standing practice in the district, and I provided just a few bullet points for you there that in kind of digging into the past, they varied in amount and also in recipient. Also, car allowances really take into account anything and everything that would be discussed or used as related to use of personal vehicles, and also that in some cases, car allowances have been used to support the hiring of external candidates to our school district. You can see here that car allowances in many cases are seen as a benefit to executive team members, that often they are written into the contracts of our employees, and also that they pay on the regular paycheck that comes through. Just some historical background for you as it relates to car allowances, and just digging in for the past 3 years. In 15-16, you can see that Peoria offered car allowances, and you can also see the dollar amounts there, to the superintendent, our deputy assistant superintendent, as well as to our chief financial officer. In 16-17, you will see that that was reduced to just the superintendent and the chief financial officer. I'm not certain if everyone knows, last year we did not have a deputy assistant superintendent. And then for 17-18, with the reorganization and of our, of our district leadership team, you'll see that there are a few additional individuals there who did receive a car allowance and currently have that in their contract. The next component just to consider and to learn about is the reimbursement for travel mileage. There is a process that has been established, and essentially I believe we're following the law regarding that. We do have information posted out on the portal, all the different forms that are needed to get reimbursement for travel. You can see there that we follow the recommended rate from the Arizona Department of Administration. That's 44.5 cents per mile. You can see there that the rate accounts for just a variety of things, very similar to the conversation from car allowance, things that would be associated with use of your personal vehicle, and also that a specific Peoria practice for travel reimbursement is that an employee must visit 3 or more sites during that same day. I just want to make certain you had that information. Other than that, I stand for discussion and any questions you may have, and appreciate you giving me the time tonight to bring you the information.
Mr. Sandoval?
What's the kind of protocol from, I think it was Department of Transportation, is that right, where you get the rate?
Yes, sir.
So what's the protocol on, isn't there a kind of a variable that should be considered when you're traveling from, not from home, but from your work site to another site? Is there like a minimum amount of mileage that you must hit before you're reimbursed?
I have not seen that. I do know that it does happen from the workplace to and from.
Yeah.
I have not seen a minimum mileage reimbursement. I could turn over to Mr. Hicks if he is aware of that, but I.
And the only reason I ask is, I mean, when you take a look at the daily requirement of at least 3 sites, if that didn't meet that number, I think, certainly any travel, from site to site is going to have some wear and tear on a vehicle, right? Going back to the car allowance slide, that's all inclusive, right? That includes any travel, or because those individuals who get the car allowance, they're not also allowed to, get reimbursement for the travel as well, right?
That is correct. That is completely separate. Yes, sir. Okay.
So, in looking at the increase in the amount of dollars that we've certainly are allocating for car allowances from last school year to this school year, if I remember correctly, sorry, the slide's not in front of me, I think it was roughly 16.5 when we added the 3 other 12, is that right? 12,000, 16.5. So superintendent, chief financial officer, but then we added the chief instructional officer, chief academic support officer, and then the executive director of exceptional student services. So what is our really protocol as a district? How do we define who gets a car allowance and who doesn't? And with that said, these additional 3 positions, did they fall within that that same, I guess, directive, if you will?
Certainly, and Mr. Sandoval, not being here when the practice was established, I'm not certain exactly at what levels of the organization, other than what I was able to show you tonight, where the car allowance started. But what I do know, as you can see, it really is a plus, an additional 2 people, looks like about $10,500 compared to 15, 16. And so I believe when our past superintendent was present, his hope was to make it across a certain level of organization from the chief title to, I also believe, the executive director was the intent. As you know, that's not the case. These are the people listed today that currently have that in their contract.
So, and then I guess my next question is in and around district vehicles. Where do those play in being a solution, for individuals who may need to travel a little more from site to site, versus a car allowance?
We do have those district vehicles. I know that in order to drive them, you do have to go through a training module, and then you do have access to them, and there is a mechanism for requesting one of those. There is a process for recording mileage. So bottom line, is that an alternative solution? Are we, as district employees, able to use those? That is correct. I'm not certain, Mr. Hicks, maybe you can speak to that regarding if you're a certified teacher that travels across sites. Are you able to also check out the district vehicles?
Madam President, members of the board, each site has a vehicle. I don't know that it's more for the maintenance department to do maintenance activities and stuff, so I don't know that a school, a teacher would be checking out that vehicle. They technically could check out a vehicle, but the other vehicle's either at the district office or at Troy Annex or at maintenance, which means that they would be driving to go get that vehicle, which probably is counterproductive in that sense, and they're just driving directly.
So, and I guess I'll get to my overall point. You know, when we take a look at these dollars, and I think the next slide talks about that, it's, you know, added into their standard compensation, meaning these are distributed biweekly, right, in their paychecks. So it's a, you know, part of their salary.
Yes, sir.
Line item, I'm assuming, you know, when we take a look at the books, right? You know, my question is, you know, if it makes sense and these individuals, you know, based on our protocol, you know, should realize that car allowance, then it makes sense. But, you know, if these dollars are going, you know, or coming from a line item that's considered, you know, compensation salaries, you know, the, again, and I know you're basing it off the 15, 16, but so the additional, you know, 10.5 or 12.5 or 16.5, however we want to look at that, just wondered if those dollars could, you know, potentially, if it is salary, you know, if, you know, some of that could be, you know, added to, you know, our teachers and staff, is my overall question.
Mrs. Connect?
Yes, I think my proposal is related to Mr. Sandoval's. The criteria that was on the slide was that employees who travel to more than three or more sites. But the group that I think is missing from here is those teachers that part of their daily routine is traveling from one school site to another. And I think if part of their responsibility is to get in their own car every single day and go from campus to campus, there should be some compensation for that. If they're using their own car to do their job, then we should be compensating for that.
Yes, ma'am. And Ms. Connect, as for last school year, we did have, and this isn't just our teachers, but anyone who put in for reimbursement, we did pay out almost $24,000 last year. So I do believe our employees are utilizing the mileage reimbursement process.
Good, good.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Yes, looking at, so I mean, I know the, on the one slide it was for, to get supporting the hiring of external candidates and using this as kind of a perk to bring people in. I mean, that kind of means that it is just kind of bumping up somebody's salary using the car allowance. Looking at the car allowance for $6,000, a person at 50, whatever the 54.5 cents, would have to travel 11,000 miles. I'm not quite sure if that's happening. Same thing with $4,500. The person has to travel 8,257 miles, or 158 miles a day at 52 weeks a year, which they're not working 52 weeks a year. I like the way it was a few years back, where just the superintendent, the deputy superintendent, and the CFO were getting the car allowances.
Thank you for sharing this information. I know we've been talking about this for a little while, and some comments have come up. I'm looking at language that most beneficial to the district. I know that we all tried to look for the specific 3 or more sites within the same day, and we couldn't find it, so it's not in policy. My train of thought is, do we as a board come up with policy for the recommendation to move forward? The other train of thought is to Mrs. Pangarelli's point is we're willing to, and Mrs. Connect's point, pay staff and our goal is to retain and recruit, it should be for all, since teachers are also in a crisis. So I would like to take an opportunity to give direction as the superintendent and the CFO have the opportunity to obtain the counter allowances because of the amount of travel they do, and at the state level, seeing that the deputy assistant superintendent position no longer exists, and that everybody else be held to the same accountability of employee reimbursement travel.
There's, I think we have Judy maybe on.
Sounds like Ms. Doan might be on.
I think Ms. Doan's granddaughter's on the line.
Sorry. Is that Mrs. Doan? She joined us? So if we're looking at most beneficial for the district, looking at the type of travel that is accepted, looking at a policy for that, and then following up with all employees be eligible as it is state required. I know Mr. Hicks shared his concern about the time and effort it will be to payroll for that documentation. But if we're looking at accuracy and giving every employee an opportunity to apply for that, I would support moving forward that everybody be assigned to the reimbursement for travel mileage, and the two positions, superintendent and chief financial officer, get the travel stipend.
And to address your piece regarding policy, President Seja Martinez, the information we put out in the employee portal is simply just defining Peoria's practice and then kind of learning about that practice. I believe the Budget Committee had worked alongside Mr. Hicks a while back to kind of decide that 3 places of visit per day was what would be making someone eligible for that. So if you had guidance on that, we could certainly bring that back before the Budget Committee.
To Mrs. Connect's point, we're putting some of our staff members in a situation where they're hard to fill positions, where we split teachers, and that is through no fault of their own. So to compensate them, to not compensate them because they don't travel to 3 schools concerns me, and we are putting them in that position. So going forward, I didn't see a policy, and as you stated, it was a conversation that happened with the Budget Committee. So if the governing board would like to move forward and look at that policy and make it a policy, or make it just general practice of what the state law says, is just everybody reimburses, and then the superintendent and the CFO proceed with the travel stipend.
But you said that regardless of, if it's just 2 sites, they can still claim based on mileage.
Right now, the practice says 3. I believe we would. I don't know if Mr. Hicks, if you want to weigh in on that at all.
Madam President, members of the board, so if the question is, can we change it? It's just a handbook. It's a guideline of how we administer the Department of Administration's rules on transportation. Peoria is probably a little unique. If I call around a few other districts, they do not require the 3 traveling to 3 sites in the same day for in-district travel. If it's out-of-district travel, it's all 100% reimbursable if you're using your own. We require or request that you try to use a district in-house, since we have vehicles for out-of-district travel in that sense.
So I misunderstood your answer before about when you answered me with the amount of money that we use for reimbursement, so that you were saying that those people who go between 2 sites was included, and if they're not, then they should be, if it's part of their job, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Do you have enough direction from the governing board?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Then this is just an informational item, so no voting is required.
And just, sorry, real quick, there is a protocol around the car allowances, right, as to why certain individuals would realize those? Is it just based on position, or are there other variables or factors?
I do believe there is probably numerous factors, Mr. Sandoval, some that we had talked about in September, I think job title being one, but requirements of the job, in particular, obviously the superintendent, right, visiting numerous sites. I think many of us, the amount of meetings that are required, perhaps you're working on behalf of a state committee or an organization. There's a variety of variables there.
Yeah.
But certain positions definitely demand more travel. That's just factual.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving forward to 7.6, recommendation to approve the selection of the superintendent search consulting services per RFQ 78-18. This is an action item. Mr. Ken Hicks.
President, members of the board, Intern Superintendent Ms. Linda Powell Thompson, colleagues and community members, this is, as you mentioned, the selection of the superintendent search consulting services. The RFQ that the board at the last meeting was handed packets to do an evaluation. All board members turned in their evaluation. And so on this agenda item, what we have is two that tied for first place and when the rankings of the 5 members came in. So you have McPherson and Jacobson and the Arizona School Boards Association tying. What has also been placed at your desk in front of you is just a summary of the references that were done. So this week we've tried to do references. Unfortunately, as you know, board members are very busy and don't always get back. And so we have calls placed in, but you could see 3 of the districts did not respond in time for us to provide it to you tonight. And so I put the references information there, and then also just a cross tabulation of the cost is also included. That's showing up on the screen right now to help, because what we have is we have a tie between the two vendors, and what we need is the board to select one.
Mrs. Connect?
What's the question?
So we're looking for a discussion on the tie and how, before we go on for a vote, normally we would do this as action item, then discussion, but because there's a tie, I would like to have the governing board discuss it first, and then we can go from there.
My first question is, how do you get a tie with the 5 of us?
So the valuation was a ranking of first, second, third, and so you gave 1, 2, and 3 points, and the way you all selected, you have 2 that had the lowest amount of points.
Oh,
Both had the exact same number.
Very good. It was a math problem.
It was a math problem.
Okay. My second choice is not on the list, but my first choice is the Arizona School Boards Association for 2 reasons. One, I really think that based on looking at the 5 companies that we looked at, they probably would end up bringing us a very similar pool of candidates. So I was looking at cost, and I was looking at the only company that was within state. I happen to be a big buy local kind of gal, was the Arizona School Boards Association, and they would bring to the conversation their knowledge of our state as a whole and the landscape of professionals that are in the state and what any professional from outside the state would be entering into. So my first choice was ASBA, and McPherson, I don't remember, but was not my second choice.
Mrs. Pingarelli?
Well, Mr. Hicks, the references, I'm sorry, what is the, Kyrene, the 69/70?
So there were 7 questions with a ranking of 1 through 10, and
Okay.
they scored 69 out of 70 points
Okay.
that their evaluator, so their employee or board president assigned to them.
Okay. Let's see. Well, my first choice was McPherson, but I do like ASB. We did use last go-around. But I had a lot of questions that, this is really important. This is just the beginning of a very long process. I think the past board members that have gone through the process know just how emotional, time-consuming it is. So I had some questions that I would like to be addressed to McPherson. The one is, and you answered part of it, is just to talk to the 3 references at Dysart, Unified, Kyrene, and Sunnyside, just to find the good and the bad, and how they perceived their interaction with McPherson, Jacobson. I had another question. Right now they're doing 18 current searches, and just to see how focused they could be on Peoria. Another one is, I know they did say the person that we would be discussing or being our representative, and it would be nice to be able to talk or meet that person. There are the positives that I got out of McPherson, which kind of brought them up a little bit, was that it was unique and a little different from our last process, in that they had a 3-day stakeholder input session where they would come before, just as the process started, and they would talk to the central office administrators, building administrators, teachers, classified staff, students, parents, and the community, and then they would, find out what the community, what those people are looking for in a superintendent. They would bring that back to the board as kind of a starting point. They also provided a guarantee that if, for whatever reason, the selection or the selected person leaves the position, they'll repeat the process at no charge, and I'm hoping that would not happen, except actual expenses. Bear with me, please. One thing that we didn't do that they did a little bit different is they would bring the finalists out one at a time, and the board would have an opportunity to sit down and talk to them in a formal interview process, but also as a informal kind of social meeting. And I believe that would be a very good way of getting to know somebody. They also stressed the spouse or significant other, as they also brought those people to see Peoria Unified. And so with those kind of points, that kind of brought McPherson above the others to me. I did have one concern that I'd like to have addressed, and that was the cost of the advertisement. Their price was a little bit, ASBA gave a fixed price, and then they had a few caveats if you wanted to have a background check, extra was $175 and such. For McPherson, their total advertisement cost is $1,000, and I just wanted to know if Ms. Aries would weigh in if that's even a feasible cost, or if it would go much higher.
President Sam Martinez, Mrs. Pingarelli, there's a lot of variables to account for depending on where you place the advertising, right, and obviously, which circulation you're going to put it in, for how long. There's some minimum requirements, I believe, around advertising. You can do something simple and small within those minimums. So that's probably a good round number. I could certainly pull what we spent in the past for some of those required pieces. Okay. It's pretty nominal from what I'm remembering from what we spent in the past. All right.
And then just my last concern or question for McPherson, even though they're at my top, I did want to try to find everything good and bad. And they had a 2016-17 search with the Omaha Public Schools. They did not come up with a candidate, and Omaha Public Schools backed out and did not continue on with them. So I just, like I said, I really poured through and tried to look at the good things I liked. Unfortunately, there was really good things on every single company. One company that ranked a little bit lower, they had an extensive background check. ASBA, their background, if you wanted to add somebody, was $175. This company was $1,000 to, I think, $1,900. They did everything from 5 years of social media. I like that on our final candidate, but that company kind of rated a little bit lower on other areas. So that's just my discussion, sorry.
Sandoval.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, for me, ASBA was definitely one of my top choices. McPherson and Jacobson wasn't for this reason, and Ms. Connect actually kind of mentioned it, but it's about relevance. Certainly, understanding our market, the landscape within our state as it relates to education, and understanding PUSD, our student population, all those, all of that knowledge, in my mind, certainly gives me the peace of mind with ASBA understanding that, in their search, they'll ensure a candidate that certainly, is again relevant and someone who can, work within the dynamics, of not only our state but our district, and certainly lead us into the future to be successful. And I would agree with Danielle and her sentiment around the advertising budget. Ms. Pingarelli, I mean, it's a small fee. Not real sure that would make an impact at all. I mean, you can get a full page ad in the Republic. It'll cost more than $1,000. So, and that's for just one Sunday newspaper. That said, Arizona School Board Association is certainly my choice to help us in this process. Thank you.
Mr. Sandoval, does that mean that you're going to volunteer your marketing services?
Well, it'll be an extension of my how much I get paid to sit on this board, so yes.
So this is my first go, and it was a lot of information to go through and siphon through all the packets. So I appreciate you creating the evaluation worksheet based on our first study session, on the discussion that the board had. I have concerns with both of them, and they both have strengths as well. So I'll first start off with ASBA and echo my other governing board members. The concerns I have with ASBA, Mr. Hicks, do you mind sharing with me the contract that we assigned for the first superintendent? Was there a 2-year clause, a 1-year clause if it didn't work out, what that time frame was?
Madam President, members of the board, contract with ASBA or
yes,
with the
ASBA for that?
ASBA had a 1-year guarantee that if you replace within 1 year of hiring, then they would do it again for free.
Okay. So I just wanted to confirm, because that was a question that I had that I couldn't find anywhere. So with that being said, there were, to Danielle's, Ms. Aries' point during the study session, she did a lot of the work, or her team did a lot of the work, and so I would love the opportunity to speak to ASBA and what would a conversation when asking for more support for advertising, what the cost would that to be considered. My other concern was what we had during that roundtable discussion was the background check. To Mrs. Pingarelli's point, a more extensive background check, and have an opportunity to interview both companies to see if their values align to PUSD. Now, when I look at McPherson's mission statement, it does say, similar to us, we're every student, every child. There, every student is entitled. Talking to them, I know when we bid outside in the corporate world, when we bid for vendors, we want to make sure we're both a fit on both ends of the conversation table. If they agree with our morals and values and what the governing board is looking for, and vice versa. So I have concerns with ASBA. I also have concerns with the McPherson. Both companies did not have any data on bond or override information. McPherson had a higher expense. And again, looking at clarification to their marketing practices, how much are they requiring our PR to do versus ASBA, which we've already experienced. I did look as well, McPherson on the Better Business Bureau had an A+ rating. ASBA did not have any rating. Opportunities, you had mentioned looking at references. Hearing that conversation, you do have McPherson's, but not enough for ASBA's. I know personally, since I've been to part of their trainings, is a plus. However, doing a superintendent selection process is a different beast. So for me, I would love to have the opportunity to speak to both ASBA and McPherson in a roundtable study session with the governing board. And I haven't decided one way or the other. And Mrs. Doan, I've been informed, is on the phone with us. She has chimed in. Mrs. Doan, can you hear us?
I would love to have the opportunity to speak to both ASBA and McPherson
Mrs.
in a
Seha
roundtable
Martinez.
study session with the governing board.
That's just your voice from the stream. Wanted to let you know Ms. Doan doesn't have any comments to add at this time. She just says she will weigh in during the vote.
Thank you. So that being said, we can go for a motion.
Mr. Sandoval has to come back.
Let's wait for Mr. Sandoval.
Yes. Mr. Hicks, while we're waiting, have you seen in this type of process where we bring two top choices back for a roundtable study session, a practice in our district?
Madam President, members of the board, I don't know practice in our district since I've only been part of one of them. You can bring that. It has happened in other districts, so that's not uncommon. It will delay the process.
Mr. Hicks, where are we at in the process compared to the last time? I thought now we're about the same, and are we behind?
Madam President, members of the board, I'm only going off of memory,
No, I know.
so I think we're probably about 2 weeks behind where we were last time. But that's just purely just my memory.
Mrs. Seha Martinez, I move to approve the hiring of the Arizona School Boards Association for our superintendent search.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Arizona State or ASBA for the superintendent search. Please cast your votes.
Mrs. Seha Martinez? Yeah.
Mrs. Pingrelli?
No, I would still like to talk to both of them before weighing in. But.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote since we have Mrs. Doan on the phone. Mrs. Connect?
Yay.
Mrs. Pingrelli?
Nay, until I can talk to both of them as a board.
Myself, I will abstain so that I can have the opportunity to speak to both of them. Mr. Sandoval?
Yay.
Mrs. Doan? Mrs. Doan voted no.
My understanding is with 2 yays and 1 no and 2 abstentions that the motion passes.
2 noes. 2
Oh,
yeses
2
and
yeses, 2
noes.
noes, okay.
Yeah, 2, 1.
So at this time, then, we need a motion to table this agenda item so that we can have a special study session to bring back the 2 ASBA and McPherson.
I'll make a motion to table this item until we can have a study session with McPherson, Jacobson, and Arizona School Boards Association to get a clear picture.
I second. We'll do a roll call vote again. Mrs. Connect?
Yay.
Mrs. Pingrelli?
Yay.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Sandoval?
Yay.
Mrs. Doan is a yay. The motion passes 5-0. We'll have a special study session to discuss and meet with ASBA and McPherson. Next governing board item. 7.7, discussion and selection of date of study session. This is so that we could discuss the strategic plan. And it was conversation to be on a Saturday. Did anybody have any dates in mind?
With the, our last topic would take precedence over the strategic plan?
Yes, great point.
Actually, if I may weigh in on that, I am feeling a great sense of urgency that we get some established goals. So if we are going to convene on a Saturday, I'd like us to take the opportunity to talk about two things then.
Okay, perfect. So include both the strategic plan and the review of both ASB and McPherson.
That's when they can, I don't know when they can.
The only conflict I see is this Saturday, we have the 5K-ish. I will not be going out of town anytime soon, so I'm at your mercy. Ms. Linda Pallas-Thompson?
Yes, Mrs. Martinez, I'm not sure, and maybe Mr. Hicks can help us. If you wanted, we need some direction on whether or not you wanted those two companies to be present. Saturday might be, I don't know what we'd have to look in at their time frame.
I will say I am reluctant to ask any of our staff members to come in on the weekend. Is it possible for us to be able to carve out a weekday?
I'd be more than willing to carve out a weekday, especially for the conversation for ASBA McPherson, since that is top priority as well.
What about Monday, the 26th?
Monday?
I'm looking.
Staff,
what do we have here?
The 26th.
26, what does our calendar look like?
Okay. And what time?
I have all day. That's why I picked that day.
Mrs. Pingerelli?
No, I can't. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, I have to be down at school.
Okay.
Is there
a different day?
Tuesday or Thursday?
Tuesday, the 27th?
Tuesday, the 27th?
That would be better for me. I'll work whatever.
I think we need to be together for a day for strategic planning.
Can you take the day?
I will work on Saturday to make it up, yeah.
Yeah, I can make myself available for the 27th.
And then the 27th?
President Ceja Martinez, both the 26th and the 27th of February are clear. We're just double checking meeting space to make sure there isn't anything that can't be moved. But at this time, both those dates seem to be feasible.
And the only person we need to ask to follow up was with Judy. So if 27th is Tuesday, any plan B? I'm okay with a Saturday. So let's look at plan B for a Saturday.
Saturdays are always better for me.
The 24th? 24th? Staff for availability for the 24th? No? Could we potentially split up, do the 27th, the evening for the McPherson ASBA conversation, and then the 24th, do a study session that's the same week, Saturday, just to discuss strategic plan in the morning?
President Ceja Martinez, obviously our boardroom is wide open on a Saturday, but we would not be able to live stream the meeting at that day, just so you know that.
Okay, so
we haven't live streamed it at our other study.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and send an email so that in lieu of time, it's 8:38. If we could send an email or follow up with Judy as well as Plan A, the 27th for the option, at least for ASBA McPherson for the evening. And then if Judy has availability on the 27th for the day, we'll take a look at that. And then Plan B is just to do the strategic plan on the 24th. That's a Saturday.
When is our next board meeting? It's the 22nd?
22nd. We'll be together a lot that week.
But can we get together and have ASBA and McPherson here on a board meeting?
On the 22nd?
Because I remember last time ASBA was here, I think, to answer questions. The other companies weren't, but because this is like putting it out another week beyond. This is kind of delaying it quite a bit.
That's a great point. So can we do the 22nd, that we already have a board meeting? We'll discuss the agenda and have a roundtable format.
President Seah Martinez, it's always easier to mobilize resources on the same day as a board meeting, so we certainly could coordinate that on the 22nd.
Board, are you okay with that? The 22nd, we already have a board meeting.
To do what?
To discuss the McPherson and ASBA.
Special.
So we'd start earlier?
Or would it be part of the agenda itself? And just be part of the agenda, and then they're here to answer questions?
I would suggest it be part of the agenda, could be the opening part of the agenda.
So they could leave.
Study session, then we can bring it into a vote if you're ready for that as the latter part of the agenda.
Yes, I would like the voting, but the roundtable discussion setup. So I don't mind hosting the board meeting as well down there and having a vote.
And just for clarification, would you be looking to allow the extra time to start the meeting earlier?
Yeah.
Did I hear someone ask
Can
about
we
the
get
time?
here at 5 o'clock on that Thursday, or still 6?
I mean, I think that, for me, I think my questions could get answered pretty quick. It's just having, even if the McPherson has a representative over the phone to answer some questions, and I know hopefully ASB is local and could be here, but to have it during the board meeting and just start at 6. I mean, that's just my one.
You're okay with that?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So come prepared, 6 o'clock, we'll have our questions ready. Regular board time, we'll have the setup for a roundtable discussion, and we'll convene regular board meeting. We'll look at the agenda, make sure that it is compressed so that we're sensitive to time. And then we'll follow up with the 24th, a study session for strategic planning.
The agenda items, to clarify, we'd have to determine, we'll look back at our your list of agenda item that you want on that study session. The assumption then would be that we do have both of these companies there and prepared to talk with you. Any questions that you'll have that you have that are extra, if you could generate them so that we can visit with them. And my understanding then, later in that evening, you'd be prepared to make a decision on one of those two companies. Are these the only two companies or options that you want to have at that point?
Yes, it looks like the board had tied for first place.
Okay. Staff, that's fine? You got that?
All right.
Okay.
Yes. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm just trying to figure out how that works within the board. Get it on the strategic. But wondering if the round.
From my understanding, Mrs. Connect, we can have, you've had past governing board meetings where we've taken action items in that setting as well, correct?
Mm-hmm. It's our meeting. It's public, but it's our meeting.
And it'll be recorded as well.
Right.
So that the public can see that conversation as well.
Correct.
Excellent. So we made a decision, February 22nd, we'll host a regular board meeting, invite ASBA and McPherson. We'll follow up on February 24th with a study session to discuss strategic planning. All right.
I'll have to be gone no later than 1:30 on the 24th.
Okay. So we'll keep the item to 1, strategic planning. Ms. Airy?
President Ceja Martinez, did you select a start time for February 24th?
Mr. Sandoval?
I think if we have a kind of a hard stop at 1, the strategic planning session, I mean, I would recommend we start as early as possible, 8 a.m., if not sooner, but 8 a.m. at a minimum.
Mrs. Pangarelli?
I mean, 8 to 9. I mean, a half a day would be 9 to 1. That's just my.
Mrs. Connect?
Either.
Let's shoot for the middle, 8:30.
Fine.
I can have
Got it.
coffee now, so we're,
Just
I'll
as long
buy
as you
for
have-
everybody.
as long as you have coffee, we're good.
Yeah. Coffee it is. Okay, 8:30, September 24th, and at the district office. It is not live streamed, but it is open to the public. We can have it in the conference room. In here is fine? Okay, in here, in the district governing board room. It will not be live streamed, but it is open to the public.
Smooth.
Excellent. Moving on, 7.8, report and discussion on local, state, and federal legislative issues and activities. Mrs. Linda Palestine.
Well, thank you, and I'm going to pass that to Mr. Hicks. He's much more informed on all those issues.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Just really quickly, I know everybody knows there's lots of bills being dropped out there or finally dropped, and within the next, I think, week, they're going to be all assigned to committees, and so at that point, you'll know what's really moving. I'm just going to call out a few just that are of interest. HB 2460, this is regarding the sale of school district land and buildings that requires the districts to accept a charter or private school offer. This did pass the House, and so it has a little bit of movement. ASBA has come out opposing this. House Bill 2185 is regarding the setting of tax rates. There's been multiple bills over the last few years that have modified the process of school districts and how they set their tax rates. The last time it happened 2 years ago, probably ATRA had some good intentions, but it had some really bad language, and so the county school finance directors have all gotten together and worked with ATRA to do a cleanup of that bill. ASBO is for this, and so hopefully they could clean up some of that tax rating setting process. You also have Senate Bill 1008 is regarding the definition of how we count the elementary students' instructional time, and it will include lunch and recess. So it increases it. What it does is really align to previously they passed. That's how you count high school instructional minutes. And so this aligns the elementary with the high school. ASBA is neutral on this. Senate Bill 1254 would require a special ed cost study to be done. ASBO and our Director of Government Relations has been working to try to make some modifications to hope that it's a little bit more feasible and more accepted in hopes that it's passing so that we could have an actual cost study done. One has not been done since 2007, and an adjustment of the rates that we receive for the special ed funding. House Bill 2282 is regarding transportation funding. Originally started out pretty bad, which is a one-way street, meaning that some districts would be frozen and be moving back to a TSL. I know I'm getting into details between the TRCL. ASBO and ASA have been working with the legislators to clean this up so that if it goes up, it actually goes up. If it goes down, it actually goes down, to make it more palatable and more fair, to be quite honest. So we'll see if those changes actually be made before it keeps going forward. So those are just a few of the highlights, but I would like to say that on Tuesday of this week, I was downtown at the legislature. Our group that we're part of, members of the Education Finance Reform Group, we held our Day at the Capitol event. I think it was very successful. I know that I met specifically with 4 legislators, talking with them, asking for their support for public education and how important the governor's district additional assistance restoration is. And so I know that there was 45 that were invited. I think 36 RSVP'd, but I know 36 didn't show up. I think it was more closer to the mid-20s of legislators that showed up. And then actually tomorrow afternoon, I got invited to go down to meet with the governor's office to discuss some additional education funding and how we can promote and help school districts, and some of it relates to the school facilities board and how some may know they do actually have a sunset clause, and the school facilities board is supposed to go away. I think that ends this summer, so they're looking for the renewal, and so they're looking for recommendations on how to make that better. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, and thank you for representing us. Anybody else want to add to that? All right. 7.9, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. We are getting through our list. A lot of the strategic planning will help with this conversation. Mrs. Connect? Yes.
So this isn't a board meeting, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. A constituent emailed, I think all of us, and brought to our attention, sparked by the Southern Poverty Law. It's very interesting, and it sparked my curiosity about what the state standards say about that. Get a chance to look at that report. It did offer some helpful curriculum.
Can I add to that and add, we did receive that email, but add Hispanic studies as well. So we look at ethnic studies altogether. Then I second that. Any other items, Mrs. Connect? Okay. Mrs. Pingarelli?
I had one, and it's not a study session or an agenda item, but it's just maybe a report, and that is for the district policy for the retention of emails. I know it had changed, I think, in 2012, and if we align with the state policy on retention of emails, I know right now it's, I think, 1 year, and our emails are all gone. So, and that's just a report.
Just a report?
Yeah.
I second that. Mr. Sandoval?
So no request for a future governing board or for an item for a future governing board meeting, but is it appropriate to just ask a quick question about 7.7, our study session at this point? I just have something in mind. I want to make sure that it's...
We could go back, there's an item that was address any...
The last item could allow you to review.
Address any additional items.
I'll hang tight.
Write
Thanks.
it down so you don't forget. I only have one item, and I know we received an email at some point, but I would like to have a study session on developer assistance agreement. We haven't visited that in 11 years, and I was watching the October 26th board meeting recently. So the developer assistance agreement, where we are with PUSD, and a study session on that. We have a second?
I'll second that out of curiosity.
All right.
Mrs. Martinez, would that be something that maybe, if we could get a summary of what the current thing is in writing first, and we could see if perhaps then if a study session is warranted?
Great point. I'm okay with that as well. So change that from a study session to a report. We're okay with the report.
And I'm just interested in like when the agreements were made and what is the standard practice.
I know we received an email, that one of the last emails from our last superintendent. I'll forward it over to show. It does discuss a little bit about that. So
great.
Any other additional items? Okay, excellent. Moving on, informational reports. 8.1, District Enrollment Report for the month of December 2017. Everything is online. Mr. Savoy did provide us this update, and I want to highlight, last year at this time, we were at 36,630. Currently, we're at 37,083. Our enrollment continues to go up year over year, and we are up 453. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Mr. Savoy. The information packet also goes by number of classes we have per grade and the number of students we have in each classroom. They look at this to see for staffing models now and in the future. So thank you, Mr. Savoy, for putting this together for us in the community. 8.2, Budget Facilities Planning and Construction Report, also online at your discretion. 8.3, Report on Upcoming Meetings and Events. There's three we want. It's a long list. Yes. There's three we'll focus on. March 1st is the 31st Annual Patriotic Speech Contest. March 5th, the Peoria Education Foundation 13th Annual Education Visionary Award. I believe we have a past governing board member being honored. And March 14th, the Patron Tour at Liberty High School, Peoria, and Zuni Hills. So please, if you could go to that, bring a friend. And 8.4, draft agenda for the February 22nd. We will follow through, make sure it is time conscious. And the next, anything we would like to readdress, Mr. Sandoval.
Thank you. So going back to 7.7, which is a study session, I just want to make sure that we're very thoughtful. So on that day, knowing that we have 8:30 to 1, that it's actionable and you know, and we leave with you know, really some substance, if you will. So that said, being a study session, is this something where we're all going to be in, including you know, our leadership here at this table, to kind of take in all thoughts, see what sticks on the wall, and then move forward? If that's the case, you know, I'd like to recommend that we invite, you know, other representatives across the district. You know, if we're going to take in, you know, thoughts from individuals to inform our study session, I've always said, and I think we all agree, you know, having opinions from different lenses just allows us to be smarter and better at what we do. So I don't know how we do that, but, you know, I think it would be very productive if we allow representatives, you know, across again, the very verticals across the district, teachers, staff, certainly our admin here at the DAC.
I would echo that. I know that we've received in the past year and a half about special ed. Parents want to discuss where we stand for the gifted program. So is there a way, Ms. Ari, that we can advertise or market? We'll be discussing strategic planning, can send emails if they can't make it.
President Ceja Martinez, we could certainly advertise just a couple of things maybe for the board to consider through that lens. If you are going to cast a wide net, we certainly would have to explore a different location likely than having it here at our district office. So we might have to then look at one of our high schools if you were talking about gathering a large group of community members and stakeholders. So that would then impact some of our schools that might have gyms, cafeterias booked months in advance. We could certainly look into all of it. I just worry about that being only 2 weeks away, and you know, on the weekend, what those constituents, if they may be available.
Great point, and the time frame if we're doing 8:30 to 1.
So, Mrs. Martinez, and Mr. Sandoval too. I'm thinking more of getting something in place in the short run. I mean, certainly we could create a draft and put it out to the community and solicit input afterwards. I'll reiterate, I'm feeling a sense of urgency that we create a document that keeps us accountable for the work that we do and keeps our staff working within some guidelines so that they can remain focused and utilize their time and energy in a way that is in alignment. Right now, I'm feeling like we have a lot of great ideas and a lot of great projects moving, but we're not streamlined. And so Whether it's a permanent document isn't as important to me right now as we have some way of providing guidance to ourselves and to our staff for the remainder of this school year.
That's a great point, too.
Yeah, and
President Martinez, can I just pipe in on that a little bit? And Mrs. Connect, thank you. We have been, for the last couple weeks, and based on some of the conversations, looking at our strategic plan, and that's what we're referring to right now. We do have in place a vision, mission, values, all of those set, and we have strategic areas. We don't have currently, and what I believe is needed in light of the conversations we're having on a new superintendent is looking, to your point, Mrs. Connect, operationalizing the plan that we currently have. I have had the opportunity to visit with our chief staff on a SWOT, some of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Invited our area in this building to do the same with our principals and several of our groups to start talking about, what, I'm sorry?
Sorry. President Saya Martinez, Intern Superintendent Mrs. Pallas Thompson. I'm afraid if we go a little too far down the specifics of the strategic plan, we don't have it agendized. We just likely have to stick to the date for a study session, which is the item that we're revisiting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sari.
And I just, my point would be, instead of bringing a community in for that particular, they're certainly invited. I believe you have an item that we can put together without broadening it at this point in time. If that would
so
work.
with a time frame of 8:30 to 1 and the immediate need of being focused, we'll move forward with that agenda and focus. Thank you, Ms. Ari.
Thank you.
I am unable to be there that day. I can forward my thoughts and initiatives from my team to you. Prior to that day, unfortunately, my family is scheduled to move that day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that being said, any additional items that we would like to redress? And the last one, 9.1, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Get that one.
All in favor? Aye.